Hello, and welcome to Dungeons and Devs, the show where a bunch of game developers get together, talk about game dev related topics, and then just play D&D for a few hours. I'm Xavier Coelho-Costalny. I'm a 3D character artist at Insomniac Games, currently working on Spider-Man for the PS4. With me today, I have Emil, Matt, Gab, and Kelly, and we're just going to kind of go down the line, introduce ourselves, talk a little bit of game dev and such, and then we're going to get into the game. And this one is actually going to be to bring things back now that we've had a pretty long break in Dungeons and Devs. It's going to be a nice Halloween special. We're going to do some pretty spooky stuff. Maybe kill some monsters or go to a haunted mansion or something and see where that takes us. So, without further ado, Emil, would you like to tell us a little about yourself, how you got into game development, and what you do?
Sure. I'm Emil. I'm a senior character artist at Ubisoft here in Montreal. I've been in the industry since 2006, I think, so this is my 11th year now. I've worked for a variety of studios, ranging from like small indie studios to AAA. Worked on mobile, worked on console, PC. Currently shipping or getting close to ship Far Cry 5, so that's fun. But hopefully I will be changing employer soon, so I'm just waiting for my new visa and then I can start there soon. But yeah, I got in the industry kind of by chance. I never really thought game development was a job. I just assumed you just went to a store and you bought a game and it just appeared somehow magically. But then through time, obviously, I realized it was a job. I started out in graphic design first, but then eventually kind of steered my way into 3D and then into game dev. So been doing that ever since and can't see myself doing anything else.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks for being here, and it's great to see you again. I know that we usually only see each other at events like GDC, so
Yep.
doing something like this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Matt,
awesome. Thanks for inviting me.
yeah, absolutely. Matt, what about yourself? Tell us a little about you.
Well, my name's Matt. Nice to meet you all. I'm an environment artist in games. I'm currently working at Method DXP doing VR and AR. And I'm not quite as much of a veteran as Emil is, but I've been working in games for about 5 or 6 years. I'm kind of bouncing around various indie startup studios and other 3D related stuff for a long time. But yeah, I'm part of like a more the new breed of game artists, like unlike Emil, where kind of just learned their way through it like early on. I went to a college, to learn art and sort of game, related stuff, and it's not that much different, maybe a little more expensive, but I kind of been working my way up from there. So hoping to work on cooler stuff in the future.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks for playing D&D with me again. This time through Skype. I've played D&D with Matt before, and it was an interesting experience. I'll say that. But Gab, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Hey, I am Gab Schwall. I'm currently a 3D general artist, so I do both character and environment work at a studio called Underbite Games, and we are just a small little indie outsourced studio. I also went to art school, and I am a pretty recent grad. I've only been working in the industry for about 1.5 years now. How I got started, I played a lot of video games, and then I realized, hey, this is something I can do. So I ended up changing career paths or majors halfway through college. So I started in illustration, and then I went to the 3D.
Awesome.
So, yep, that was my start.
That's great. Well, thank you for being here, and thanks for playing. And last but certainly not least, Kelly, do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Mangerino. I am currently employed by Hangar 13 Games. I am a mission designer. I've been a designer for a couple of years. I've kind of always known that I wanted to do that. Yeah, it all started with games, just like everybody else. I was like, wow, these are amazing, and I want to do it for the rest of my life. So that's about it. Like, you guys have covered it all. I think we all share a lot of similarities.
Oh, yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you guys for being here, and thanks for coming to play some goofy D&D and such. It's always a pleasure to run a game for me, and it's always nice to connect and reconnect with other folks in the game industry. Before we actually get into the game, we should probably actually talk about something game development related. So this is a question that I've actually been asking a few other people in these games, and it seems to lead to some pretty good discussion because everybody has sort of a different take on either getting into game development or just generally working in game development. And basically, what would you tell someone who's trying to get into game development if they wanted to get into the job that you are doing right now? What piece of advice would you give them, or pieces of advice would you give them, and what might you tell them to maybe caution them or give them some sort of advice for getting into where you went in the game industry? Emil, do you want to start?
Sure. Don't go to a game art / game dev school ever.
Being a graduate, yes.
I fell down that same trap. I did it for a year, and luckily I realized halfway through that year what a waste of time and money that was. Like, it's probably not every school's like that, but the majority of schools I've heard have been like that. I would recommend anyone who wants to be an artist to actually go to art school and actually, like real art school, learn art fundamentals, drawing, sculpting, painting, that kind of stuff, because that stuff's going to translate so much easier into the game dev environment. Because ultimately it comes down to your folio and how good you can create art or how well you can create art. Learning software like Photoshop, Max, Maya, Modo, ZBrush, like you can learn that over a weekend, maybe not to a master level, but you could do the basics in all of those over a weekend. So don't spend $30,000, $40,000 a year for someone to teach you something you can learn by using the help file in that appropriate software. That's like in my experience, that's what I found. So ultimately, talk to other people, get involved in the community, things like Polycount or follow people on ArtStation, go to GDC and meet people like how I've met most of you as well. That's a really good way to communicate and sort of meet other people, and then just chat on Discord, share stuff, and just get feedback and hopefully get better, and ultimately just going to come down to your folio. So pretty much that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think we have some general agreement about all of that advice here. I found that a lot of people in the industry I've talked to have a lot of the same advice in that general sphere. Matt, what about you? Getting into maybe environment art, is there some advice that you'd give maybe students or people just generally looking to get into game dev?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess speaking as a pretty middling environment artist, a big part of it is finding the discipline to sit down and do maybe even 20, 30 minutes of work. It doesn't have to be an all-night bender every night. You don't need to kill yourself doing that. You'll just burn out. But discipline over anything else. If you're always making some work over a long period of time, you'll improve way more than if you're pushing yourself so hard you destroy it. So just craft that, find whatever that takes within yourself, and I should probably take my own advice. But even if you're just doing little ZBrush sketches for 20 minutes a night, that's work that gets put into the 10,000 hours you need to put in. So whatever it takes for you to get there, do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know, I guess a little more, I don't know if it's as easy for all people, but besides, you have to be good. Everyone, that's a given. You need to be a good artist to have a good portfolio. Cultivate friendships, get outside your little bubble, have experiences, actively invest yourself in the game art community around you if there is one. If there's not, try and do your best to find one, because there's little indie groups everywhere. Try to be friendly to people, be a genuinely interesting person, and you will meet people who will, you will all pull each other up together. And it's not a mean thing to be you're looking to know people so you could get jobs. It's be a genuinely interesting person, and you will find a lot of things come easier to you.
Yeah, I found that advice is really good, especially for events like GDC. I remember the first time that I went to GDC, I was that guy. I would shake someone's hand and immediately give them my business card.
Oh no!
And
all of those go in the trash.
Yeah, thinking back on it now, I was a terrible human. It was me being garbage. And so as long as you can not do that, as long as you can just be interested in other people as people and get to know people, it seems like you'll have a lot more success.
But everyone's always that guy the first year they go, they always walk around with their GDC badge all proud and going, hey, check it out. And here's my business card. Here's like this. But, like you learn the first year and then the second year you go, you're like, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to be that guy or that girl. So.
Yeah, I think
for the record, I think I gave Xavier my business card just last year. So.
I honestly couldn't. Okay, well, yeah. I must admit I probably threw it away because I throw away basically all business cards because I don't really have any use for them, including my own business cards.
Well, to be honest though, like there were maybe 2 or 3 people that introduced me, not this last one, but I think the one I went to before that actually gave me stuff, and I ultimately did refer them because but mostly because they showed me their folio like on a tablet or something. And I was able to sort of go, okay, can I get your business card? And I requested one purely because I saw their work rather than give me their business card than me going home and checking out their folio. So that's another thing I would recommend. If you go to GDC, bring a folio. Don't bring it on your phone. Bring it on a tablet or print it out, something that is large. Because if you show me your phone and go, can you look at this awesome thing? I'm like, no, I'm not looking at it on a phone.
Also, no, I just can't see it because it's this big, right?
Yeah, I did that to Emil, I'm pretty sure, at one point. But, well, actually, one quick more thing before we move on. Sorry, I don't want to take more time. But we keep mentioning GDC, and it's pretty easy. Obviously, not everyone has the resources to, like, come to an event like that. It's expensive. You may not be in the States, but find opportunities that are around you. Use the internet. Twitter is an amazing place to meet artists and devs and all sorts of people. Put yourself out there on whatever means you have, and just try to make it work for you. You don't have to fly across the country to meet people, even though it does help and it is a good time. So,
yeah, absolutely. Gab, what about you? Is there any advice that you give somebody trying to get into where you are in the game industry?
Yeah, since the game industry is such a competitive field, you really have to specialize. So, like, if you want to be a character artist, for example, you shouldn't be spending like 40% of your time learning to draw trees or something. You should really focus your time and effort into really perfecting your craft at being a character artist. So, I think that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of us could agree that especially over the past couple of years, specialization in the game industry has become a much bigger thing, even at smaller, medium studios. So having that specialization is probably, will help you in the long run to get into the specific field you're doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And certainly last but definitely not least, well, that was a weird way of phrasing that, but Kelly, what about you? Is there any advice that you'd give people trying to get into your field or your little sphere in the game industry?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for game design and mission design in general, like all of the other positions, it's pretty hard. But my piece of advice would be to also don't go to school. Don't do it. Trust me. I did it. You don't need it. But it's just more knowing the engines. Like, there are so many resources out there. Just sit down, learn them, be really good at them, and make things. Like, just make as many things as you can possibly do. Have something to show. Create levels. I would caution against this idea that you need to make your own game. While that's cool, and if you have the time to do that, sure. But it starts with like modding. Like, we look for people that mod things, and if you can do it exceptionally well, you draw the attention of the developer. They will hunt you down. Mm-hmm. So, build things, get good at engines, and keep working at it. Try to get into the community of the company you like by doing those things, and just have something to show.
Mm.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that for sure. Like, especially with the whole modding idea. Like, one of the things I used to do early on before I even knew game dev was a thing was actually build my own maps in things like in Duke Nukem 3D, or even like trying to paint my own skins and stuff like GTA 3 and stuff like that. But now commonly, like, the tools are more accessible, and you tend to see a lot of people who spend a bit of time doing a mod or something like that. It ends up getting featured on Kotaku or something like that, and suddenly like, oh wow, this person can do this thing, and then developers always reach out and try to get them. So 100%.
Yeah, I've definitely found that a lot of people I know in game development got their start with modding, and I mean, I myself, some of the first things that I did for games were modding, Half-Life and Team Fortress 2, and that's really how I got my start in the game industry, was making weapons and items for TF2. Matt knows that. We played TF2 extensively, years and years ago now, and I was always, fiddling with maps or weapons or something like that, and it really helped me to get a good handle for what goes into making games by actually making stuff for ones that already exist. So I think a lot of people have very similar stories. So yeah, I would say that's absolutely great advice. Well, unless you guys have anything else that you wanted to mention, I think we're about ready to dive into this goofy little game of D&D that we have planned for today. Today we have a surprisingly balanced party. We've got a warlock, a cleric, a rogue, and a paladin. I was looking forward to 3 rogues and maybe a wizard or something, but I'll take what I can get. With that, let's get started, and let's kind of set the scene. The Adventurers Guild is an organization that spans multiple countries, multiple continents even, and it employs many different types of people at many levels of expertise, and you folks are not very high up in the organization, let's face it. Being level 5, you're pretty low-level adventurers, but the Adventurers Guild likes to employ lots of people who they can bring up through the ranks to sort of bolster their numbers and, send out on some of the shittier jobs sometimes, protecting a caravan or, killing rats in a sewer, something like that. But today, Bailey, the guildmaster at the Villemire Guild Hall, Villemire being one of the main cities around, and actually one of the places where occasionally the king will make his residence if, he wants to summer there. Bailey, the guildmaster, has actually requested that the 4 of you come to his office and talk about a job that he has heard about. Now, Bailey is a very well-connected man, even if he's a bit of a lush, and he often gets requests from far-flung cities, towns, and even sometimes things like military regiments, looking for just some people who can do some stuff on the cheap. And today, he's received a letter from someone in a small town called Wulfbridge. And as he explains this to you in his office, he says that you can read the letter if you like, but basically it says that like most of our other jobs, there's some weird shit going down, and we just need you to go investigate. It's probably nothing. It's probably just like a zombie walking through somebody's garden, but we'll have you go check it out. It's a couple days' ride, and from the sound of things, it looks like there might be some sort of weirdness connected to the phases of the moon. The harvest moon is approaching in the next couple days, and seems like a lot of things happen in phase with that. So he's gonna send you out, and you should probably get going there, since these weird events tend to happen right as the harvest moon is at its peak. So in maybe 2 or 3 days' time is when you will want to be there, or be there even before that, if possible. So, knowing that, you set off, fully equipped for, well, probably fully equipped, maybe pretty well equipped. I mean, you're equipped with something. You probably got some knives and swords and a few spells. You got a horse or two, and you make your way over the course of the next couple days to the small town of Wulfbridge, which is out in what is essentially farmland. It's a little bit hilly. There are a couple areas that are a little overgrown. They have small forests and such nestled among hills. And riding into town across the the Wulfbridge, a small bridge over just a creek. You come to the town just after sunset, and the small shops and taverns are just starting to shutter up for the night. Looks like there is a small general store which still has a light on inside, and the tavern just down the road also looks like it's still open. And reading through the letter, you find that it's signed by a man named Orson, who does indeed own a shop in the town of Wulfbridge. So, knowing that and arriving just as the stars are starting to peek out of the deep blue sky in the crisp air around Wulfbridge, what would you like to do?
Oh, that's a
All
good
right.
question.
Yeah.
You can start that if you like, if you had something.
Not quite. So
So, quick question. Do we,
Yes.
as a party, know each other and have we been introduced to each other before?
You would probably have seen each other around the Adventurers Guild Hall. There's a common area which most of you would take lots of meals in. And you might have worked with each other once or twice, but you probably wouldn't know each other super well. The guild is pretty large, and it seems like Bailey is just trying to essentially throw you guys a bone. Seems like you guys are doing pretty well in the organization, and he thinks you might work pretty well together, but, you know, even if you don't know each other, he expects people in his employ to get to know each other if they need to. So you're free to describe what your character is like, and describe how they would react to this situation, and what they would be doing as they are slowly riding into the town of Wulfbridge. Emil, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I'm a warlock. My name is Tobin, so everybody in the party knows my name. Tobin. I'm a dwarf. I am really pale-skinned. I have mismatched colored eyes. One is gray, one is black, and I have long, straight black hair, but no facial hair whatsoever. So, which is strange for a dwarf. That's not by choice. He just can't grow facial hair. So he's one of an unfortunate dwarf. And you may or may not notice, but I'm struggling on my horse a little bit. Being a dwarf and having very short legs, I'm not able to maintain my balance in the stirrups too well. So like a little bit with a bit of discomfort, I guess, kind of just riding along, but trying to hide it a little bit.
All right, and Matt, what about you?
So I'm still working a little bit on characterization here, but I am a cleric, also a dwarf. Currently named David Dworkovny because I needed something. But I've got I've written down here the personality traits: bad attitude, pessimist, negative outlook, a little heavy set with a very nice beard, but maybe not quite middle aged, but like young enough to know better, or not know, young enough to know better, but also old enough to be kind of a dick about it to others. So I'm not the nicest person to be around. We'll see more about that, but I'm still working on it, so
right.
I'm sure more will develop.
All right.
I'm jealous of your beard, by the way.
It's extremely good.
I'm sure it's very well kept, and it does glisten a bit in the moonlight.
Oh, of course. I'm going to write down
nice.
beard right now.
Yes,
there we
yes.
go. Personality trait, beard.
Gab, what about you? You did mention a couple of interesting traits, though I think we might want to keep at least one of them secret.
Yeah, so my character is Marath. So she is a half-elf rogue character. So she'll be very like confident, kind of confrontational, kind of more of a darker sort of character. Very dark dressed, kind of hides in the shadows a little more sort of character.
All right, great. And Kelly, what about you?
So I am playing Raylan Valencia. She is a paladin of the god Tyr. I am all smiles in my highly polished armor, probably riding the most majestic white steed. Always smiling, always happy, as optimistic as they come, but probably not all there intelligence-wise. So,
All right, great. So you guys would have had a couple of days of writing, getting to the town of Wulfbridge to sort of get to know each other a little better, and pick up each other's mannerisms. Now, looking down the main street of this small town, and really more of a village, you can see that it seems like most of the small shops are shuttering up for the night, and most of the activity is centered around the sort of pub at the far end of the street. And surrounding this town, it's almost in a small valley between two not very large hills, but they are hills nonetheless. It kind of slopes down in, and it's sort of nestled in this valley. And the moon is just starting to peek over the horizon. Looks like tomorrow will be the full moon, and that's when you suspect most of the weirdness is probably going to start to happen. And you do see that the shop that you are slowly riding towards, off on your right-hand side, does have its lights still on inside. There's firelight coming from inside, along with a lantern outside, an oil lamp that's currently burning brightly, and you can just make out on the sign hanging out front, Orson's General Store.
Did we have a contact that we had to meet, or was it more just purely go into this town and investigate?
From looking at the letter, it seems that from what this person, Orson, who presumably is the owner of the store, has written, what it basically says is that strange noises and disappearances of people have been happening, and it seems... it doesn't actually specifically say it, but you get the impression that these things have happened before, just from the wording. And he does stress in the letter that the harvest moon is when this sort of thing is most likely to happen. He doesn't say when it's happened before, but it does seem like harvest moon time is when this stuff generally occurs, and he's had some sort of experience with it. The letter is actually kind of surprisingly cryptic for being a letter meant to hire some people to do a job.
Well, then I guess if we noticed that it was called Orson's General Store out front was the sign.
Yeah.
I notioned to the party that I think we found the Orson from the letter. Maybe we should go in since the lights are on.
I say, I don't know, sounds like a waste of time to me.
I majestically step my steed, and with a swish of my cape, I lead the way.
All right.
I struggle to dismount my horse.
Oh, if I see you struggling, I kind of off to the side to not like seeing your pride. I go, "Do you need a hand?"
I think I can manage, but thank you.
Your dwarven pride.
All right. So
Deep sigh.
riding up to the general store, there is a place to hitch your horses, and you guys dismount. Some of you with more difficulty than others, but you do make your way into the store. The door is unlocked, and through the sort of frosted, not quite frosted, but wavy glass of the door, you can see that there are shelves, and there's a bit of movement inside, though it's hard to see in. And you just want to go inside?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
All right. So entering this general store, you can see that it has everything from dried foods to shovels and pots and pans. It really is a general store. You can see that there are some large barrels with things like dried beans and some grains. There are gardening tools in the back. There's firewood off to one corner. There's all kinds of stuff. Off to the left-hand side, there is the main counter with the till and a gentleman standing behind the counter reading a small book. He has short gray hair and a patchy patchy beard that looks like he keeps it trimmed short. He's a little bit heavy set in his mid to late 50s, and he has a small pair of glasses balanced on the tip of his nose, which he pushes up a little bit as he's reading. As the door opens and the little bell tinkles just above, he sort of looks up and pushes his glasses back down his nose and takes a look at you and says, hello and welcome to Orson's General Oh, well, you folks have the look of the Adventurers Guild about you. We don't really get folk of your caliber in town very often. Is there something I can help you with?
I'm guessing we have the letter upon us. I'm like, yes, we've received this letter and we're looking for an Orson.
You found him. I'm a bit surprised. I sent that letter out weeks ago, but I guess late's better than never. So what can I tell you? I mean,
I guess you mentioned that people have been disappearing, especially around this sort of time. Is there any more information that you can share with us?
He actually kind of like looks out the windows to make sure that there aren't people listening, and he looks back to you and kind of leans over the counter and sort of fiddles with his glasses a bit, starts cleaning them, and he looks like he's gotten nervous all of a sudden, and he pauses, and then, I sent that letter because over the past 30 years that I've been living in this town, everything has just gotten worse. Everything. And I didn't know what to put in the letter, but you've seen it. There have been disappearances, and every single year over the past 30, we've had disappearances around the harvest moon. Usually, young girls in their late teens or early 20s go missing, one or two at a time, and some folks have just said that this town is cursed. Some folks think that they've run off to the big city to make names for themselves. I think it's something a little more sinister. I think that someone is taking these girls and doing something awful with them, and I think I might know who, but I don't have any evidence. All I know is that around Harvest Moon time, people disappear, and there are strange sounds that come from the fields around the old Hodgson place, just down the road. Now,
how do we know that you're not behind all of this?
Well, that is a legitimate question. The main reason being that my own daughter disappeared about almost 6 weeks ago now. You can ask around town. The other folks will tell you that she's gone. And I couldn't let it stand anymore. You know, this has been happening for as long as I can remember, and it seems like the Hodgson place is the only logical place to look.
Most
you
crimes
seem a little
committed by
nervous.
people the relatives know.
Sorry, Matt, what was that?
I say, most crime is committed by people the victim knows.
He kind of like looks at you like, you're accusing me of something.
I'm just being.
Can I insight check him? I mean, it sounds plausible, but I just want to make sure he's as distraught as he seems, and not just the show.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, do an insight check.
No, is that the guys? First roll the night to one.
Oh.
I mean, as far as you're concerned, I mean, he seems like he's on the up and up.
I'm just kind of being a dick to him because I'm trying to find my character.
Yeah,
You're still my number one suspect.
With that one, I just go up to him and I take his hand and I say, "On my honor, I will find out who's behind this."
Well, he takes your hand and clasps it in his, and he says, "Thank you. I knew it was a good idea to send that letter. I just wish I'd sent it sooner. Growing up in this town, I just thought it's the way it is. I thought that sometimes people just leave or disappear or something, but it's just not. Seeing my own daughter, her bedroom empty, and not hearing her voice, it's killing me, and it's killing my wife. It's killing our family. We just need to know what's going on."
Was there anything left behind? Any trace after or when your daughter disappeared?
Nothing that we found.
And who can we expect when we get to the old Hodgson's place?
Just the widow Hodgson. Matilda, I think her name is Matilda Hodgson. She's been living there for as long as I can remember. She's an odd sort, but she's been without her husband for a good 20 years. He died quite a while ago. He was in the war, and then when he came back, it seems like they were constantly at each other's throats. I don't rightly know how he died. He died when I was young and chasing tails, so didn't pay too much attention. Didn't know him very well, but as far as I know, she's the only one there.
Was his death suspicious, as far as you remember?
Well, I assume he's dead. He just sort of up and disappeared one day, as far as I can remember. But that's been, it must be 20 years ago now. I couldn't tell you much about it.
Well, it seems like we have our first lead that we can at least check out. Which direction did you say this old Hodgson's place was?
If you just continue through town, it'll be about half a mile on, and up on the north side of the road, off on your right.
All right, perfect. I'm happy to check that out. Well, what do you guys think?
I suppose so. We don't really have anything better to do.
I look like I'm on the verge of tears because I'm so sad for this man. So I'm just like, I turn around and I'm like,
His plate.
All right, great. So heading out of the store, he waves you goodbye, and there's just like this one last quiet plea, just like, please find her. And with that, you can see that he actually starts going around the store and turning off all the oil lamps and sort of getting ready to close down shop.
I was gonna say, do we think we should wait until morning, or should we go investigate now? Considering we have very limited time, it seems like a lot of the disappearances happen at the full moon, and that seems like it's tomorrow night.
Might as well go do something now, and then we can always come back.
agreed.
No reason.
So as you guys mount up again, once again, some with more difficulty than others, you do sort of ride down through the town, passing the pub on your left side. You can see that just through the doors, which are currently ajar, it seems like a good portion of the town is in there, just having maybe supper or getting drinks. It's a bit quiet in there for what seems like it'd be a bit more of a bustling bar, but you do continue on and find that the town ends fairly abruptly after that. It's a very small town, a small village, and working your way along the road, it sort of goes up and exits the valley, and as it sort of crests the peak of a hill, you can see a few farmhouses in the distance, illuminated by the last traces of sunset and the moon rising. And about a half mile farther on, you do see at the top of a hill the peak of a roof, which looks like it's probably the the top of a very tall house with very steeply peaked roofs and a sort of large presence. Seems like a large house, presumably the old Hodgson house. Is there anything you guys want to do on the road as you just sort of make your way over there?
I was just gonna, as we approach, but maybe someone can say something if they want to do something beforehand. But as we approach, I just wanted to kind of have a look around, at least to check the house to see if there were any sort of like cellar entrances, like basement entrances, things like that. I don't expect to go in it, but just more to observe to see if I can spot anything of that nature.
Okay. Gab, was there something you wanted to do?
I said count the trees, but
All right. So as you guys ride up, the road sort of curves off to the left, going southward, and there's a sort of trail going off to the right, north to the house. And you can see, now that you've gotten closer, in the moonlight, this house is very large. It looks like it's probably 3 stories high, and it looks like a almost like an old Victorian mansion. It is a bit creepy. It looks like it's not in the greatest repair, and there are a couple of old gnarled oak trees out front. And then it looks like going down the slope at the back of the house, there is some overgrown plant life of some sort, though it's hard to make out from this distance in the dark. And riding up to the house, you can see that one of the windows on the 3rd floor, which is actually a bit smaller than the 2 floors below, one of these windows is illuminated by some sort of candle light. Riding up to the house, there is a bit of gravel, a gravel drive out front, and which just sort of transitions into overgrown grass on the sides. You can't see any sort of entrances aside from the front door at the front of the house. Do you want to like ride around the backside, just do a circuit, or?
As far as I was concerned, I just wanted more of a quick glance, but if anybody else was interested in doing anything more than that, but no, mine was just more just to sort of see what I could see from initial.
can we reach any of the windows as like an alternate entrance?
There are some windows just above head height, maybe 6 feet up. That it seems like the whole house is like the first floor is about 6 feet up, and there's some steps going up to a landing at the entrance, like at the front door, and then it seems like below that it's masonry and where the basement would be. You could probably hop up and grab a windowsill. It wouldn't be too difficult. You're not sure if any of the windows are locked or anything.
How about Kelly, me, and Emil? We knock on the door, we make a little noise, we talk to someone maybe, and Gab can go do what she does. Scope out the place a little more.
Okay.
All right.
Sure, that works for me.
All right, cool. So who is going to walk up and knock on the door or anything?
I don't mind.
Okay. So walking up the 8 or so steps to this small porch. It's a covered porch. It's just kind of an extension of the roof coming out, and you go and you rap on the door, and there's no immediate answer. You knock again. A few seconds later. Do a perception check, if you would.
Sure.
All 3 of us, or just Kelly?
All 3 of you, I suppose. I mean, you would all be sort of
Yep.
looking
Or
around.
4 of
Please,
us.
everybody join me.
All right.
Sweet.
Nope, that's gonna be a 4.
You're kind of with how small this porch is. It's kind of difficult to see anything like around, just because you have the 2 folks right behind you. So you don't notice any sort of movement.
I kind of comment lightly. I'm like, maybe she doesn't have servants. and you guys are kind of remember that I come from a loftier background. So.
All right. Emil, what was your perception check?
Crit fail +3.
All
Ooh.
right.
This
Yeah,
is gonna be
it's
great, guys.
you know,
His first roll.
your bright and happy friend ahead of you seems to be a little bit distracting with the near constant happy chatter. So it's pretty distracting as far as looking in windows and stuff is concerned. Matt, what
Sure.
about you?
I got about a 13.
13. So while this is going on right next to you, you're kind of like peeking in the front window, like the window just to the side of the door, and you do see a little bit of movement in there, but it doesn't seem like anybody is specifically coming to the door. Okay, Gab, what are you doing?
I got an 18.
Okay, so and you wanted to kind of circle around the house and just scope it out, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay, so working your way around the house, you do find that there is a large back porch which is covered. It has sort of like screen, and it's almost like one of those storm porches where you can go out while it's raining and just have a nice cup of, hot chocolate or something. There's some nice patio furniture back there, though it does look like a lot of it's in disrepair. Most of these screens have been torn in some way, and at least one of the patio chairs is just kind of collapsed in on itself. It looked like it has some dry rot or something. You do find that there is an entrance to the basement or cellar or something on the back side of the house on the west side. But the doors are they're barred with wood that's been nailed down, and there's also a thick chain with a big padlock that's locking the two handles together. Additionally, looking out just beyond the back of the house, you can see that there's a lot of like gnarled vines and such along the backside of the house. It looks like this might have been some sort of farmhouse or something before a lot of it went into disrepair, and you can see that there are all kinds of different plants that have just overgrown the maybe acre behind the house. You can actually make out a few like rotting gourds and pumpkins in a couple different places where it looks like somebody just hasn't been taking care of stuff. There are several windows at about that same height. None of them have any lights on inside. There's just the single window up on the third floor that actually has light coming out of it. All right. Do you guys want to knock on the front door again?
I would like to just see if the door is unlocked by turning the handle. I'm not entering, just checking to see if it's unlocked.
We're the nicest adventurers, apparently.
You kind of jiggle the handle, and it does appear to be locked. Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm going to pound on the door, like reach past the paladin and pound on the door. It's like, come on, old lady.
Okay. Are you actually like shouting, or are you
Yes,
just like? Okay.
yes, I am.
All right. So you pound on the door once, twice, and in rapid succession. And just before you're able to pound a third time, the door clicks to unlock and opens very fast, like a lot faster than you were expecting it would. And standing there in a dark foyer area, wearing a sort of not ragged looking, but certainly old and used looking nightgown, is a stooped older woman who looks like she's probably in her mid to late 70s. Maybe 5'2", and she has her hair pulled back into a tight bun at the back, although it does have some gray streaks just hanging down in a little bit of disarray. She holds a snuffed out candle in one hand, in a little saucer with a handle on it. Just kind of holding it there, almost as if it's giving off light, but it's completely snuffed out and actually almost burnt all the way down. And she has the door in one hand and the candle in the other, and she just looks directly up at the three of you. You can see that her lower jaw is kind of protruding, like she doesn't have any teeth, and there's sort of a milkiness to one of her eyes. Her ears are sort of larger than you'd expect, and she's incredibly wrinkled, like she has had a lot of sun and a lot of stress in her life. She's very, very thin, and you can just barely see that her breasts are sagging down in the front of her nightgown, and she has very knobbly knuckles. And she just opens the door, and her head is at a slight angle, and she just stares at the three of you, not saying anything.
Well, I speak up, and like at first I'm like a little bit horrified, but then I like quickly collect myself and I go, "Apologies for the late intrusion, ma'am. We were hoping to speak with you. You see, we're here on behalf of the village to assess the situation that is currently happening."
She kind of eyes you with her one good eye, and you can actually see that it moves independently of the more milky-looking one. That milky eye just seems to be completely dead and unmoving. And as she starts to speak, you can see that on the same side as the milky eye, she doesn't have any expression. It looks like she might have had a stroke or something, so she just speaks out the side of her mouth. And holding the candle, she lets go of the door handle and says, "And what is the situation you're speaking of?"
And I kind of look to the rest of you as if you want to speak up, or do you want me to continue?
By all means, you've got our attention.
And
You're the
I
nicest one here.
Charisma is my only saving grace, guys. And I kind of sort of reiterate what the store clerk told us, and that we're desperate to find the girls on behalf of our guild.
Okay. So she just stands there staring at you with her one good eye as you're relating this, and she doesn't betray any sort of emotion. Her expression on the one good side of her face doesn't change, and she seems to like think for a moment and look at all three of you, and she actually takes the candle, which is not burning at all, blows on it, and says, "I don't know anything," and she slams the door.
What a charming woman.
Can I see if she was lying?
I'm sorry?
Could I do another insight check to see if she was lying?
Yeah, go ahead.
I should have did Zone of Truth. Damn. Let's see. 15?
She certainly seems suspicious. You can't really tell if she's lying, but she certainly seems like she's a bit of a weird character, that's for damn sure. And there's a lot going on with this lady, that's pretty clear. Okay, Gab, what do you want to do? You would probably have heard the door slam at this point.
I'm going to run to the front because I was worried something had happened, and now I need to figure out what happened, so I need to be filled in.
Okay.
Someone.
Okay, so
What's going on?
you guys see your friendly rogue running back up to you, asking what's going on.
She wasn't very helpful.
Yeah, we didn't get much information. Hopefully you got more
Who's
from looking
she?
around. The Widow Hodgson.
Widow Hot.
Yes.
Well, I found some sort of chained up door in the back. Do we want to go take a look at that?
Just break into her place.
Maybe we
I
can
kind of
try
look
knocking on that
uncomfortable a
door.
little bit.
It's worth investigating, considering we're getting a lot of disappearances, and especially if it leads underground. Underground's generally a good place to keep somebody. So I think so.
A little suspicious looking. So.
That's more
Yeah.
heroic than breaking into an old lady's house in the middle of the night.
right, so you guys work your way back down the steps and around to the west side of the house where this this door down into what looks like it probably is a cellar is, and it's it's clearly barred, as I mentioned before, and there's a thick iron chain. What would you like to do? Do you want to like take a look at it somehow, or just look around in general?
I wanted to knock and just call out for hello to see if there was anybody down there. Just
Okay.
like, hi, is anybody down there? Can anybody hear me?
Okay. Yeah, so you sort of knock on the wood of this door and shout a bit, and do a perception check for me.
Sure, let me see what I have. All right, let's roll again. So +3, 14.
All right, so you kind of lean down and listen at the door, and at first you don't hear anything, but then you do hear. It doesn't sound like footsteps. It sounds more like sort of a shuffling, like a. And it with like the thickness of this wooden door, it's a little bit difficult to tell if it's actually something like big moving around or if it's just like a rat or something. It's pretty hard to tell what the sound might be.
I hear something down there. It's very faint, but I'm not hearing any voices, so it's anybody's guess as to what it is. But if there was a missing girl or anything like that, yeah, I don't hear any voices at all.
Could be a rat.
It could be.
Rat.
Yeah.
Anyone have any ideas? Do we try maybe go back to town and see if anybody else? Because obviously we're not getting any information here from.
So it's like a cellar, but it's sealed off, correct?
Yeah, it's so you know how some cellar doors will be like they'll be at a slight angle just above the ground, and they'll like open up with two doors. Well, it's barred with planks of wood that have been nailed in place, and there's also a thick iron chain with a big padlock holding that chain together.
I look at Emil's character very seriously, and I go, "Do you think it was a human? Or do you know? What's your best guess?"
I couldn't honestly tell you at all. It was just really faint. It's hard to tell through the thickness of the wood. Yeah, I was looking to see if there was anybody alive or maybe somebody that seemed like they needed help for capture, but I didn't get that from listening. So it could actually even just be a pet that she may have. It could be somebody down there. I'm not entirely sure. So whether we choose to break in to have a look, I don't know if I'm prepared to do that at this moment, but
Yeah.
we
I
don't
try
have
with
much to
all
go
my
on.
might just to like jiggle the lock off.
Okay. Do a strength check.
Strength check. Is that a D20?
Yeah, so a D20 and then add whatever your strength modifier is.
God. So 3.
Yeah, so pulling on this chain, you can feel it is really, really solid. And the padlock actually looks like now holding it in your hand, you can see in the moonlight shining down that it actually looks like it's rusted in place. Like the hole for the key that's right on the front of this padlock has actually been rusted over. And it seems like the chain itself is also quite rusty, like it's been there for quite some time. But even with all the rust, it's still very, very solid. And I want everybody to do a perception check.
Okay. 16 for me.
I'm getting there.
13 for me.
13,
I got 13 as well.
13.
That's an 11.
Okay. So, Emil, as this is all happening, you would naturally be like keeping an eye out for anything weird anyway. As you're doing this, just sort of like, looking around, making sure that nothing weird is going on, some sort of movement happens to catch your eye out in the sort of gnarled vines and roots at the back of the house. It looks like it's maybe 50 yards off, and there is some movement out in those vines. It's very difficult to tell what it is, and the only reason that it catches your eye is because you can see a slight gleam on something, like a little highlight of something slightly shiny out there that moves and then stops moving.
I don't think we were alone. I just spotted something about 40, 50 yards away, just the corner of my eye. Did anybody else catch that?
I whip around. I'm like, let's go find it.
Yeah, I think we should definitely see if somebody's following us. So
we just
kind
heard
of
you. I guess to lead the way.
Look around confusedly.
I lead the way, but I'm kind of a little bit hesitant. At least I'm not just sort of going hooray. So just kind of like.
I mean, we didn't see it, man. This one's on you.
I'm happy to go forth.
Okay, so heading back around the house into this field out back, it looks like on this very slight slope that it's on, which kind of levels out fairly quickly, this used to be where somebody had either a very large garden or even some sort of area where they had tilled the earth and planted all kinds of plants, and you do see lots of gourds and other vine plants sort of growing over themselves. Lots of them are rotten, lots of them are new. It looks like this is just where it used to be taken care of, but over the years it's just sort of all grown over itself. And picking your way through this out into the middle of this just vine-covered area, it's kind of slow going, and just FYI, like if you wanted to run or something, this would be considered difficult terrain because of all the vines and stuff. But picking your way out there slowly, you do happen to catch another glint of something slightly shiny out in the middle of this big patch of land. And getting closer, it looks like there is actually a pretty large pumpkin out there, which has a vine growing off the top. And as you get closer, you can see that it's just slowly shifting a little bit. Just kind of like moving in place, almost like rotating around itself, and the vines next to it are sort of shifting with it.
Based on what I'm seeing, did this look like, or kind of, could this be the thing that I saw?
It seems like it's in the right place, and you can see that the surface of the pumpkin has that kind of like glisten that pumpkins do.
Sure. Is it making any sort of threatening movement, or is it just literally just kind of like hobbling about?
It seems like it's almost like if a hamster in a ball, like a hamster ball, was stuck in a little bit of a pit in something. Sure. It looks like it's trying to roll around a little like that, like rolling in one direction and falling back, rolling in another direction, falling back, that type of thing. As you approach, and just stepping on some of these dried vines and stuff, it seems like it sort of like starts turning a little more. At this point, you'd probably be, I don't know, 10 or 15 yards away.
I shout out just like a hello to see if I get any sort of voice back.
My character throws a rock at it.
Okay, so as you shout at it, you do see that one of the vines nearby, like a kind of crook of this vine, sort of lifts up a little bit and comes back down, and another one lifts up and comes back down. Do a dexterity check if you would.
Me?
Gab, sorry, as she's throwing a rock at it.
Dexterity?
Yeah, so D20 plus your dexterity modifier.
Okay, I see that.
Ooh, nice.
18 plus 24.
Oh yeah. So as you as you toss this small rock, it just sails through the air and just like hits against the surface of the pumpkin and leaves a little dent. And then you actually hear a weird sort of like guttural sound emanating from the general area of where this pumpkin is. And this pumpkin is pretty good size. It's about 1.5 feet across and maybe just a little bit shorter. It's kind of wide and squat. And it you can now see with your eyes adjusting that it is, it's a bright orange. It is exactly what you would think of as a pretty large pumpkin.
Right. So besides the little grumbling, I didn't get any response back to my hello.
No. Aside from a little bit of movement and some grumbling, there's nothing that nothing intelligible, at least.
Sure.
Maybe it's just not very friendly.
Has anybody seen something like this before?
You guys
Can't say I have. No.
Yeah, you guys could do
a new one.
I guess this would be a history check.
Ooh, fancy.
To see if you've heard of something like this. You could also try doing an Arcana check to see if this is some sort of magical thing you might have heard of.
Well, I have a +0 in either, so
Yeah.
we could just keep throwing rocks at it.
I kind of whispered in an excited voice. I'm like, I don't want to poke it.
I don't know anything. I got
Be
a
my
5.
guest.
Well, I rolled. So you said it was Arcana or?
You could do a history or
Oh,
an
I have
Arcana
to
check.
do history. 19.
19. So you probably would not have encountered something like this before in your day-to-day or even in some sort of weird circumstance, but you might have heard of something similar to this. You would know that under certain circumstances, both rocks and plants and other inanimate things can, in the presence of strong magic, be sort of animated. So sort of like a golem or an elemental type of thing. This seems like it might be sort of fit that description. You've certainly never seen a pumpkin do this before, but it seems like this might be it. You're just not certain.
I no longer want to touch it. Would I know that, like, how or who is creating this, or it's just magical presence?
I mean, to the best of your knowledge, it's just certain types of magic in strong concentrations in places can have effects where they sort of animate plants and that type of thing. But you wouldn't necessarily know who unless you maybe knew the specific spell that was being used, or if there was some artifact that you could investigate or something like that.
Nope.
Well, it sounds like this old lady's got some more interesting things going on she doesn't want us to know about.
I look around to see if this is are there other pumpkins around, or is it just this one?
Yeah, there are several other pumpkins around. A lot of them look like they're just kind of like rotting in on themselves. Some of them look like they're fairly new and pristine. Doesn't seem like any others are moving, though.
Okay.
Should we throw in a rock?
You can.
Yeah, what? You know what? Why not?
Who's our magic caster? Or
That looked fun. Xavier, I pick up a little larger stone and heft it.
Okay, so picking up this rock that you find, it's about the size of a good meaty fist, and you just chuck it. Do a dexterity check.
-1, got it.
Oh no.
Oh, nice. I got a 0.
Oh wow!
It just
Like
lofts
Yeah,
completely in the wrong direction.
Does this potentially hit me in the back of the head or something?
Yeah, actually, Matt, roll 2d10.
Oh, great.
And give me them individually.
Okay. First one is a 9, second is a 4.
94. Okay. So you toss this rock, and it actually, like, as you're trying to throw it, it actually spins out of your hand, kind of bumps the top of your hand, and just falls straight down.
Oh. Okay, that was not as
It's
disastrous
downcast.
as I thought it was going to be. I don't think it's really worth agitating this thing. It doesn't seem to be a threat to us, and especially if it's just something that's been conjured. I was more curious to see if there was somebody trapped inside, but it also doesn't seem to be the case. So I'm not entirely sure if we should really agitate this any further. It's up to you guys if we really feel like this is worth investigating further, but I'm not entirely sure. I've never seen this before.
Can we send one of our horses closer to it to investigate? So we send a living creature.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
if you wanted to, you could go and grab
like
one of your
sacrifice
horses.
a horse.
You could
I
go
feel
and
like
grab one of your
the paladin might not
horses
like that.
from the front of the house and bring it back here. Absolutely.
All right, I will go get my horse.
Okay.
And then,
At that point, I go, no.
Okay,
I'll do it. I'll do it. What do you want me to do? Touch it?
you're gonna go.
Yeah.
You're gonna go up and touch it.
I go up and I'm just like, I try to look as like regal and confident as possible, but it's a facade. And I just go up there and I just like, to the extent of my finger, just poke it.
Okay. I want you to do a dexterity saving throw.
Against the pumpkin.
No, that's gonna be a 5.
Yeah. So as you go and approach, and you're kind of like trying to poke at it, you feel a sort of shifting underneath your feet, and suddenly, before you can even react, something wraps around one of your ankles and starts to pull. I need you to do an acrobatics check to make sure that you can actually stay standing.
Dex is my second worst, guys.
All right.
That's a 5 again.
Oh no!
All right. So you are pulled prone as this vine is wrapping around your ankle and trips you. And starts pulling you towards the pumpkin. Meanwhile, this pumpkin, which before was just kind of rocking back and forth, and now rises up on several vines that are actually sprouting from both the top and the bottom. You can see it looks like the vines on the bottom are like growing out weirdly and unnaturally. And as it rises up, it gets to about 5-6 feet tall, and it starts trying to sort of lift you up. It almost looks like an octopus on maybe 20 different legs, just kind of like, and it sort of the top kind of twists around on these vines towards you guys, and as it twists around, you can see, you know how pumpkins often have those like brown scars on the surface. Well, this one has that sort of thing going on, and as it turns toward you, you can see that these scars are going in towards a kind of impression, and as it turns further around, you can see that in that impression there is a human skull embedded in the pumpkin. The lower jaw is open, and more vines are sprouting out of it and just kind of writhing around. And you can also see that small vines have grown out through the eye sockets and have small leaves at the end. With that, I need everyone to roll initiative. Okay, so
Gosh, another 3.
here. And just keep track of your scores so that I can write them down. So,
Ooh, I'm rolling real good today.
I think we all are.
all right. So, anybody get 25 to 20?
No.
What about 20 to 15? Okay, 15 to 10.
13.
Keep going.
13. All right.
This is gonna be good.
And 10 to 5.
I got 8.
I got
And
9.
8. Oh, 9? Okay.
Alright.
I don't trust this dice roller thing. It's not doing so well for me.
And Matt, you got an 8, is that correct?
Correct.
And bringing up the rear, we have Emil with a 3. Nice.
No one ever listens to the dwarf.
I know that.
All right. And with that, it's going to, at the very top of the round, the pumpkin is going to act trying to lift Kelly into the air with one of these sort of wriggling vines, and moving up towards the head. Kelly, I need you to do a strength check.
Yeah, finally something I'm good at. Doesn't matter. Well, 14.
14. It rolled a 13. So as it is trying to lift you, you manage to grab onto some of the dried vines on the ground. It kind of lifts your leg up in the air, but then you're just too strong for it, and the vine that it was trying to lift you with just slips off of your foot, letting you fall back down, prone, and ready for your turn. Meanwhile, the this pumpkin is going to shoot out 3 more of its vines, trying to hit you, the other 3 of you. The first one is going to be rolling all over my keyboard, apparently. The first one is going to be a, let's see here, 14. Let's see, Emil, does a 14 hit you?
Yes.
All right. So it's actually going to shoot out this leafy sort of vine towards you, wrapping around your chest. Matt, does a 15 hit you?
It does not.
Alrighty. And finally, Gab, does I'm assuming a 19 hits.
Wait, what am I rolling?
Well, it's against your armor class. So up there at the top of your sheet in the middle, there will be
14.
a little 14. So yes, a similar vine reaches out and starts to grab onto your midsection, sort of wrapping around your waist. So both you and Emil are sort of wrapped up in these vines. It's now going to try to pull you in towards it. I need both of you to make strength checks.
Ah, damn it.
Your best trait.
Yep, it totally is.
5.
18. Nice.
All right. So as it tries to pull you, Emil, it actually it yanks and yanks, but you're able to kind of like brace yourself and resist it. However, Gab, it rolled a natural 20 to pull you towards it.
No.
Yeah, so it's going to drag you towards it, pulling you across the ground and in towards its now looming head. The skull kind of like moving inside the pumpkin, the jaw kind of working a little bit, actually chopping off some of the small vines that have sprouted out of its mouth. You can hear the clicking of teeth. And
Someone save me.
yeah, with that, it's going to bring it to Kelly's turn.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. I run straight towards her, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And I just take out my longsword and I go for an attack.
All right. Are you going to try to attack the vine that's wrapped around
I'm
her?
going to try to attack the vine. But I see,
Okay.
I'm like, how close am I to that, like, creepy skull thing?
So the vine has actually pulled her to like maybe this far away from the skull. So it's like within snapping distance.
Okay.
Oh shit.
So this is, does a 14 hit?
14 does hit.
All right, cool. Well, then that is going to be 1d. Ooh, nice. That's going to be 11 damage. 11 slashing. And it's a magic sword, so I don't know if that has
So
anything to do with it.
Yeah, as you come up and just swing at this tentacle with your sword, it cleaves right through, almost like slicing through a fresh vine with the, just like a machete. It splits, and you can hear the skull now chattering as it kind of pulls back a little bit, and Gab is now released from the grip of this tentacle. It's still kind of wrapped around, or not tentacle, but vine. It's still kind of wrapped around, but you're able to move freely.
Cool.
Is that all you want to do on your turn?
Well, I say to her, I say, stay next to me for protection. And then I have one more
I just
attack.
cling to her leg like. Oh, no.
I have one more attack, so I'm gonna go for the skull.
All right, go for it.
That's a natural 20.
Well,
nice.
Hold on, I have to
All
get
right.
yes, that will absolutely hit.
So it's double. Okay, so it's
So you double all the dice,
double.
and then
Okay.
add any modifiers on top.
Okay, so max 1, low on the other one, so 8, 9. Actually, can I divine smite it as well?
If you would like.
That gets doubled as well, if I'm correct.
You would double all the dice that you roll when you're making the attack.
Fantastic. So it's basically, I'm gonna. Okay, so let's math. Here we go. This is why I have a calculator, guys.
Yeah.
So that's doubled. So I'm gonna use divine smite at level 2. So it's 2d8. When you use it as another spell slot, you get an additional one, so that's another 3d8. So.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's not my first paladin, and I love them. So. And by the way, if it's fiend, undead, or any of those evil doers, they take radiant, another d8. So
This would be considered undead.
sweet.
One shot.
And then so the total is 31 damage.
31
Holy
damage in a single turn. All right.
Rolling 20s.
Yeah, so just walking up to this thing with your sword, you almost hit it like a baseball. You just knock it in the skull, and you can see that as you just cleave at this thing, you actually take off a chunk of the pumpkin and just nick the skull a little bit, and you can actually see from inside the pumpkin there's this splatter of kind of purplish ooze that just leaks out and sprays in an arc off of your sword as you make this cut.
Nice.
All right.
That's all I can do.
Yeah. All right. That's gonna bring it to Gab's turn. What are you doing?
I will try to take a swing at it.
Alrighty. Cool.
So is that strength?
So you'd roll a d20 and then add whatever the modifier is next to your weapon where it says attack bonus.
If you're a rogue, I think it's.
Okay, I'll attack with my short sword, which is +6.
Yeah.
So that's 21.
All right, 21 definitely hits. Roll damage. And are you trying to attack the skull, or are you trying to attack the vine that's wrapped around Emil?
We'll free Emil. So.
Okay, so regardless, still hits. So roll damage. So that's
18.
going to be 18 damage? Or no, so
What?
it's to roll a damage with your short sword, it'd be a d6 plus 3.
Oh, d6. So 6.
All right, so you walk up to this this vine that's snaking out. It's about an inch thick. It's a really heavy vine, and you just go whack it with your short sword, and you can see that it hits and gets embedded most of the way, but then you have to kind of shake it loose. It looks like it's almost all the way cut through, but not quite. Do you want to move, or do you have a bonus action that you might want to use on your turn?
Oh, what's a bonus action? Sorry for the noob question.
Oh no,
but...
no, you're fine. Actually, I'm not sure that you have any bonus actions really. I know that you can disengage to get away from the as a rogue, you can disengage, which means that. Anybody can disengage, but as a bonus action, you can disengage. And essentially what that means is that you would move away from the bad guy or whatever, and while you're moving away, it doesn't get sort of an attack of opportunity at you. Usually, if you're moving away from something and you move past it, it'll be able to attack you, but you could disengage if you wanted to.
All right, I'll back up because I don't want to get grabbed again. That was too close of a call for me.
All right, cool. Then that's going to bring it to Matt's turn.
Hello. Okay. I'm going to draw a mace, and I think I can also cast as another action, right? Because I'll cast spiritual weapon, get a second, mace or full floaty friend
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could move. I don't think I have any actions left to move or do anything after those two, right? So I have to kind of just hang out and wait. I don't remember how the action system works in 5, so.
Well, I mean, you would be able to like, you'd probably already have your weapon out at this point, having
Fair
seen
point.
what's going on.
Okay.
How does spiritual weapon work? Do you have the text for that in front of you, or do you want me to look?
Spiritual weapon.
I have it, yeah.
Yeah, like you do it as a bonus action, and then it would be a bonus action to attack it. So you can do it as an action, and then a bonus action to use it. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that does sound right. It's just been a while since I played anything that would use it. Yeah. Yeah, it's one bonus action, creating a special weapon. Blah 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 blah. Takes force damage equal to 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. So yeah, you could cast that and roll an attack with it if you wanted to.
Okay. I don't think I'm close enough to it, but I was going to just charge straight in, pretty much.
Okay.
I
Cool.
stupidly wrote down in my flaw section phobia of undead. So when I realized that, we will
As a
see.
cleric, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun. So I think once I get a good look at this thing up close, it might not be so great. So otherwise, yeah, I'm just going to rush in and get a good hit in with my mace on the body.
Okay. Do an attack roll.
Of course. Let's see. Sorry. What was my plus?
Let's see here.
Takes forever doing these dice rolls.
Yeah.
All right, so with my mace, I rolled pitifully low.
What was the total?
Total is 10, so that's not going to hit.
Yeah.
And
So
I think,
unfortunately, 10 does not hit.
yeah, I think my spiritual weapon. I think it does it follow me, Kelly, or do I have to actively like
here.
move it?
It's ranged, so you can put it pretty far, actually.
Yeah, you can move it up to 20 feet on your turn as a bonus
Gotcha.
action.
Okay, well, I guess he'll float in with me. I don't think it gets an attack bonus, so straight D20 probably.
All right, cool.
And let's just call that a 12, and that's probably not a hit either.
Yeah, unfortunately, a 12 doesn't hit.
Yes, of course.
All right.
This is why I don't trust pumpkins,
Well,
or
yeah.
vegetables rather.
I mean, there's a creepy skull in it. So.
All right, and bringing up the rear is Emil. What are you going to do?
Seeing as I was able to fight off the pool, I'm like, okay, I'm a short, stout little dwarf. I got this. So I'm not too concerned about the vine wrapped around me, and now I've seen it's already been cleaved, almost cut off. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do an Eldritch Blast, and I believe at 5th level I can cast it twice, which is pretty awesome. So I'll see if it hits first.
Going for the big guns right away.
That's a 9.
Yeah, unfortunately, a 9 does not hit. It sort of arcs right past the main body of this thing. One of them going sort of between the vines and just impacting into the dirt. All right, and you said you get cast that twice?
Well, yeah. So essentially,
like
like,
two,
yeah.
Or is it
it's
two
considered
projectiles?
2 attacks, 2 separate attacks, or 2 beams.
2 beams. But do you have to roll for each?
No, I think it's literally if I hit, I get to cast both as like
gotcha.
like one, like they both take 2 different kinds of damage. So I have to roll for damage twice, but it's only 1 attack roll, I believe.
Beam of crackling energy, streaks for creature. More than 1 beam when you reach. You can direct beams at the same target or at different ones. Make a separate attack roll for each beam.
Oh, okay.
So you would make another attack roll.
All right, perfect. Oh, natural 20.
Ah,
All right, yeah. So you're going to be doubling all the dice on this and then adding any other modifiers.
Okay, perfect. And that's so 2d10 plus 6.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's going to be 1d10. So it's multiple beams. So instead of it, at least I'm pretty sure.
You said doubling, right? So I'm doubling my attack because the
right.
crit.
Well, you're just going to roll a d10 and then double that number.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So 1d10 plus 6. So I got a 7, so that's 14 plus 6 is 20.
All
Nice.
right. So with the first beam arcing out and just missing between the vines that are sort of both dangling and pushing down to hold this thing aloft, the second one shoots out again and actually strikes this thing directly on the skull, leaving a huge burning hole in the cranium, and it actually blasts the entire body of this pumpkin backwards, rolling and smoking onto the dirt, where these waving sort of vines sort of slowly fall down and go completely limp. A small trail of smoke just coming up from the skull at the center.
No one ever listens to the dwarf.
That's a catchphrase.
All right, so what do you guys want to do?
Well, I untangle myself, I guess. I really want to investigate the skull, if it's still intact.
Okay. Yeah, so walking up to this, the remains of this weird pumpkin creature thing, and looking at the skull, you definitely can see the hole that you blasted into it. It looks like you hit the same spot that Kelly sort of cleaved into, and it weakened it and just blew into there. And taking a closer look, you can actually see that there is just a tiny bit of flesh remaining on the skull in certain parts. You do see a little bit of, one patch has a little bit of hair up on top, and along the area of the mouth, there is a little bit of mummified flesh, which looks like it has some stubble on it.
Okay. Yeah, I was almost going to see if I could do a check to see if, through my warlocky, undead, necrotic stuff, that I was able to discern whether it was male or female, but I guess the stubble already answered that question.
Let's say, wait, this pumpkin has stubble?
And I'm like, damn it, even a skull can grow a beard. Initially I was looking at it just to sort of see if it was a female one, which it could have been one of maybe the disappeared girls, but seems like the skull belonged to a man.
All right. Well, with the revelation that this bizarre animate pumpkin had the skull of some man stuck on the inside of it, chattering and trying to attack you, that's where we're going to take a quick 5 to 10 minute break to recharge our batteries, get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, and we'll be back in just a minute. So, welcome back. We've just come back from our break, and we're ready to get back into it. But, once again, it wouldn't be right to have a game development-focused podcast or show or whatever without talking a little bit about game development. I've been asking various different questions of various different groups. Today I want to do a bit of a different question, which would be actually related to people that you know. A lot of people that we know in the game industry, we're good friends with them, or we've worked with them before, and, we would absolutely recommend them to people. Is there anybody who you can think of who you think is just like an awesome person in game development who, if you were going to give a recommendation, you would just absolutely plug this person? Is there somebody who makes some really cool art or some really cool content of any sort who you think is just, hey, I want to give a shout out to this person because they're cool? How can people go and check those people out? Where can they go to find that person's work? And who is somebody who you think is cool enough to plug on a show like this?
Whoa, okay. That's a really cool question.
Yeah, that is.
Someone might have to go first.
Yeah, I need time to think about this.
All right. Well, I have a recommendation, just to sort of kick things off. And let me just pull up her ArtStation real quick, because I think it's nice to be able to bring in lots of people. That's sort of what I'm focusing on with this whole project, is bringing more visibility to game developers of any sort. And I would actually recommend, like, if you want to check out a cool artist, somebody who's sort of up and coming, I would recommend Becca Halstead. She is an illustrator and concept artist, and also, I believe, doing a bit of texturing work and such. She's currently working on World of Warcraft. She just started in the industry in the past couple of years, and she's a really cool person and a really cool artist. We actually met in person for the first time at GDC this past year, and it was really great getting to hang out for a little bit. We had a weird, dumb introduction where I recognized her name on her badge, and I was like, "Oh, hey, you're Becca Halstead. I follow you on all sorts of like social media and stuff." And as soon as I said that, I realized how weird it sounded saying, "I follow you on the internet." But then later on, we went to like a Polycamp meetup and other stuff, had a couple drinks, and we've been internet buds ever since. So yeah, she's a really cool artist. If you want to check her out, her ArtStation is just artstation.com/Becca Halstead. That's BECCAHALLSTEDT, Becca Halstead. And she's a concept and texture artist on World of Warcraft. So yeah, go and check her stuff out. She's on Twitter. She's on ArtStation. She's on them social medias. And I would say she's worth a plug. So what about you guys? Is there anybody who you can think of who you just want to give a shout out to because they make some cool stuff? Doesn't even have to be art. It could be a programmer or a designer or somebody who makes their own indie games or a director or any number of different things.
Actually a really good buddy of mine. His name is Matthew Hatfield. I give him a huge shout out. Like, he's only fairly new to the industry. He's currently working at Boss Key. But funnily enough, he was discovered by a guy named Ryan Hawkins, who was an outsource manager, I think, at Boss Key, from streaming on Twitch. He literally saw his stream and was like, "Hey, do you want a job?" And because he's new, he's a guy who also loves to ask a lot of questions. He really wants to learn, and so far, from what I can tell, he's really growing within Boss Key as well. And it's just really cool and inspiring to see people who have a love for something, and whether they're actually working in the industry or not, being able to continue to work on it, continue to force themselves to grow and learn more. Like, he's always asking me for feedback, whether he's doing character stuff, whether he's doing hard surface weapon stuff, like that kind of stuff I think is super awesome to see in the community or just in the industry as a whole. So I'd love to give him a huge shout out. Sadly, I don't think he has an ArtStation, but like anyone who else is like that out there, like a huge thumbs up to you, and just keep pushing. Because you'll get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. What about the rest of you guys? Do you guys have anybody that you would mention as being somebody who's cool and good at what they do and maybe worth taking a look at their work?
Yeah, I guess I'll go. I'll say that's a good example of why you have an ArtStation or an online portfolio. So you never know when someone's going to mention you or somewhere. But so I have a good buddy of mine, name of Dieter Miller, DIETER MILLER. He's a concept artist, illustrator. I went to college with him and known him for a few years, but I've become pretty close friends with him. But he's way better than his current position, and I know he's going to go far. But he's probably someone to watch. He's got a really nice amount of work on ArtStation. He's someone to check out if you're looking for a concept artist. I think you'll like his work. So
Awesome. That's great to hear about. I know that the community, like the art community back in, and the game dev community back in Michigan, Gab, you know this as well, is sort of really bringing itself up essentially by its bootstraps, because there, before a few years ago there wasn't too much out there, but now it's starting to grow and flourish. It's pretty cool. Speaking of Gab, do you have anybody that you'd recommend?
Yeah, actually, we had an intern, and he's currently working with us part-time. He's still in school, but he's extremely talented. His name's Kevin Young. And so, yeah, like I said, he's working with us part-time. He's extremely talented 3D modeler. He does a lot of hand-painted work. So he's going to be someone to look out for when he graduates college, because I think he's a senior, maybe a junior right now. His art station is LOL Kevin Young. So.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear about, especially people who are, interns or just starting to work their way in the industry. And hopefully we can give those types of people a boost. And what about you, Kelly?
This is really hard.
Yes.
But I am probably going to recommend one of the first, and you guys probably experience this because in games you make friends with everybody just because you can relate to everything. And so when I first came aboard at 2K, Hangar 13, I met an artist named Matt Smith. And that's going to be fun to look up his art station, I know. But he's had so much experience in games, and I'm more so recommending him because of having worked with him. And he's just one of those developers in general. He's an artist, but he just is so committed to his work and the people that he, is a part of the team for. And when we're there, like, working all hours of the night, he's still there. And then he's there before everybody and after everybody, and just constantly wants to make everything he does the best it could possibly be. And he's kind of like a role model for a lot of the people that he works with on the team, but also just like, we're not, like, I'm a designer and he's an artist, but I still want to be as committed as someone like that. So,
well, that is
cool.
awesome. It's great to hear about that kind of passion in people, and I'm sure that we all know people like that who are just so committed and so passionate about their work, and it's always great to hear about that. Well, thank you guys for sharing info about people and kind of bringing them into this. That's really the whole point of this. It's about playing some D&D because D&D is fun, but it's also about putting more of a public face on people who might not have it, including these people who you've mentioned. That's why I wanted to do this and why I want to get more people involved, because I want people who are not maybe community managers or directors or something to be essentially people to all those people who play video games, instead of just being a name in the credits. Well, with that, I think it's time to bring things back around to our funny little game that we're playing. So, let's set the stage once again. So, having come to the small town of Wulfbridge, and encountered the person who originally wrote the letter to the Adventurers Guilds, noting that there have been disappearances of people a lot over the past 30 years, but especially around the time of the Harvest Moon. You then made your way to the old Hodgson house, where the widow Hodgson, Matilda, currently resides. Upon investigating the house and trying to make contact with Matilda, all you guys really ran into was an old woman, presumably Matilda, at the front door, who had very, very little to say to you and was behaving a bit strangely. You guys did find that there is a barred and locked cellar door, but then noticing something off in the pumpkin patch behind the house, you guys made your way to the center, where you found a large moving pumpkin, which revealed itself to be some manner of undead entity, which had a skull embedded directly inside this pumpkin. Now, a short battle ensued, during which you cut off several of its viney tentacles, and eventually the killing blow was landed by Emil as he blasted it with eldritch energy, carving a huge hole in this skull after Kelly had cloven off a bit of the pumpkin covering it. Upon further investigation, you could see that the skull had some remains of flesh on it, a small bit of stubble along the jaw, and small tufts of hair on the top of the cranium. And after a brief investigation further and relating on your past, you all did find that you do know of entities along the lines of what you've seen, where they might be reanimated or just animated by some manner of pervasive magic. And that's where we've sort of left off. Now, from here, standing in the middle of this pumpkin patch, surrounded by dried and dead vines along with newer growth, what would you like to do?
Am I able to discern whether or not the decomposition of the flesh and everything on the skull was recent, or whether it's kind of been preserved since it's been reanimated?
Do an investigation check.
Sure thing. What's my investigation? Oh, it's a +4. Okay, watch me roll extremely poorly.
Welcome to this game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 17.
All right. So, taking a closer look at this and using a little bit of your magical ability to sort of illuminate this skull embedded in this large pumpkin, you're able to take a closer look and discern that with the way the decomposition looks and the sort of mummification that's happened of some of this flesh on the bones remaining, it looks like it's been there for quite a long time. The exposed bone has been sun-bleached, and it looks like this pumpkin that has kind of grown around the skull is actually not the first thing that actually grew around the skull. Digging in a little bit into this gross, almost purplish-looking mass, you can see that previously there were more vines wrapped around the skull which have since died and shriveled, and there are the remains of sort of the fleshy pulp of past pumpkins, which are sort of encased in layers around the back parts of this skull. It looks like this skull has been here in this field for a very long time. Additionally, you can see that along the trail that these vines that lifted up left, you do note that in a couple of spots in the disturbed earth there are white flecks or white something visible, though you can't quite tell what without taking a closer look.
I think we may have found what happened to Mr. Hodgson.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
There's also some mysterious-looking white specks over there. And then I go over to check it out.
Yeah, so going and taking a look, you wouldn't even have to do another investigation check. It's pretty clear from just brushing some of the dirt away. These are bones, and yes, it does appear to be the rest of the body that was attached to the skull. The rest of the body is sort of crumpled together. Very little flesh is left, but you can tell that all or most of the bones that belonged to this skull are here, right underneath where the pumpkin just was.
Well, I think we may have some questions for that old lady now. Brandish's mace.
Yeah, I was gonna say, perhaps if we take the skull with us, we can persuade her to answer our
Shove it in her
question.
face.
I have a skull.
Hey!
Do
That's awesome.
That was well timed.
we want to try again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe a little more forcefully this time.
Oh, yes.
As much as I don't like to beat
I
up
don't
old
have
ladies, I
persuasion,
think
though.
she
I have
may.
persuasion. I can try, but
So I'll pick the skull up and I'll put it in my book bag. So I'll be the one to carry it.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, so you kind of like dig the remains of this skull out, and you can actually hear some of the skull bones that were pushed in from that eldritch blast, kind of rattling around inside there, and it's kind of slick with the slime from the inside of these pumpkins, and you kind of like shake it off a little and then stick it in your bag. Do you guys want to go back to the house to check things out some more?
I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe we
Before
should.
we head to the door, I will tell the party, I'm like, I can make her answer truthfully if she'll listen to us, but we'll see.
I think it's worth a shot.
We could also just punch her.
I go, no.
Alrighty, so heading back up to the front of the house, and looking up, you would notice from having seen the light on in the third floor window before that it has now been extinguished, and there are no more lights on in the house.
Is it pretty late?
It is pretty late now. It's probably a little after 9 p.m., something like that. The moon is fully out. And on that note, let's see here. It is pretty late. I'm just sorry, I'm looking at Zone of Truth, because you did mention it before. I just want to make sure that I know exactly what's going on. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, walking up there are a few clouds in the sky, but as the clouds do come out, or as the clouds do clear up and a little bit of moonlight filters through a bit more, you get a better view of the house, and you can see that all of the white curtains across every single window are closed. They're pulled together. Gab, I need you to do a Constitution saving throw.
Oh boy.
18 plus 1, so 19.
Okay. You do feel a bit of a familiar rumbling in your stomach and chest, and your right fist sort of clenches involuntarily, but you manage to sort of power through it, and no other sort of effect takes place. You guys want to walk up to the front door?
Sure, but before we knock, I say, do you think she'd be in a better mood in the morning with tea?
Tea would be great. Right now, actually.
It's quite possible, but we're on a tight time budget at the moment.
It's true.
Noted, and I bang on the door
Yes.
with all the strength that I have.
Okay. So after a few seconds, with all of you now probably looking in the sort of frosted side windows on either side of the door, it would be clear that there is, once again, a little bit of movement in there. And you hear a voice from the other side say, "What do you want?"
I look at the group and then I go to the door and I'm like, "Madam, we found incriminating evidence in your yard, and I think it's your best interest if you open up and answer some of our questions, or else we'll summon the guard."
Okay. Do a persuasion check.
Here we go. 13.
From the other side of the door, you hear. Actually, let me see what you actually would hear, because you might not actually hear anything. I'm sorry. You certainly do hear a bit of shuffling, and it sounds like someone going. And with that, let me just pull this up. There we go. You hear. Let's see here. Kelly and Emil, both of you do an Arcana check.
Oh boy.
Can't check.
Just cantripping us.
I have a -1. That's an 8.
8 and a 5. You guys hear what sounds like some sort of incantation being said, and then there is a very slight, almost misty-looking shimmering on the other side of the glass, and a sort of sound that comes through the door, and upon further, pounding and speaking, you don't hear anything from the other side of the door.
Oh. Based on what I heard before in the basement, was that a similar sound in terms of the shuffling and noise, or was it something a little different?
It was not the same sort of sound.
Okay.
Is that something that we all heard or noticed, or just them?
They would have understood that some sort of incantation was being spoken, but you guys probably wouldn't. You guys have probably just would have heard essentially like muffled speaking, but you wouldn't be able to understand any of it. But all of you would be aware of sort of a almost what looks like a puff of smoke or something brushing past the windows that then immediately dissipates.
Okay. David Dwarf Company is losing patience. I'm going to try to bash through the door.
Okay.
Shoulder my way in or something similar.
Alrighty. Do a strength check.
I will, and I will probably do poorly. So, an 18 plus my mod of 2, so is a 20.
That'd be a 20, yeah. And sort of pounding on this door once, you hear the hinges creak, and something in the locking mechanism sort of snap, and on the second hit, you just burst through with chunks of the door frame kind of bursting inwards, just a little spray of splinters and stuff, and you can tell that the hinges are sort of off kilter now, and the door slams open and smacks into the wall right next to the doorway. And looking in, you can see that you're greeted with a sort of foyer, which on the left-hand side, looking back, is a hallway, which leads back into darkness. And on the right-hand side is a staircase going up to the second floor, also just fading into darkness. On the right and left are both doorways leading to separate rooms on either side of the foyer area.
As I stumble through, I shout, "We have some questions for you, old hag."
You hear absolutely no response.
Made me feel better.
I'm just reading as you're doing this. I'm reading like my tenets of devotion. I'm like frowning, and like then I put it away as if like technically.
All right. So blasting your way into this house, it is completely dark inside. There are no sources of light that you can see. And it almost seems a little unnaturally dark, almost as if there is some sort of force or presence or something that is causing it to be more difficult to see than you would expect, given that there is moonlight streaming into the doorway. What would you like to do?
I was going to say, as a dwarf, do I get like dark vision, and does that also affect dark vision?
Yes, it is. You do have dark vision, I believe, out to it's either 60 or 120 feet. I think it's 60. So at about 60 feet, things would look dim normally, which is why you were pretty easily able to see in the dark before when out in the pumpkin patch. And really, the only reason that you noticed the glinting off the pumpkin out there, but. In this house, it's like for you being used to seeing pretty well in the dark, especially in the distances that you see inside this house. It seems like it's very unusual for you, and it feels a little uncomfortable because you can't see as far as you are used to seeing.
Sure. Okay. I think there is some form of magic being used here because I'm struggling to see in the dark.
She's playing with us.
Just so you know, I can't see anything. You probably hear me falling over a chair or something.
Yeah, as a human, you would not have any form of dark vision, and yeah, it is for you. absolutely completely pitch black inside, and you're actually even having like looking directly out the door. It's hard to see out the door that you are standing in front of, even though there is bright moonlight out there.
I'm having some difficulties.
I suggest we all hold hands so we don't lose each other.
Yeah, feel free to just.
We like.
Or I can cast
walk
the
along
light.
the walls.
Would
I was
you like
just
a
looking
light?
for that because I don't have it.
As a cleric, you should, right?
I don't know
Or
if
maybe
my
you just
domain
don't have it
does.
as your prepared spell.
I have the wrong domain. It's a cantrip. I just don't think I have it.
I
Okay.
can do this as a channel divinity. I can make somebody's weapon
Ooh,
magical and shed a radiant light.
that sounds fun.
Since I have a magic sword, I recommend me giving it to somebody else, because then their weapon becomes magical for the duration.
So maybe not Gab's because she might want to be not seen. I feel like.
Yeah, for a
Yeah.
rogue. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Then you want a magical weapon.
I already have one, so.
I don't know if this is for me or if I can cast it on somebody.
If anything, you can cast it on my quarterstaff, and I can take lead since I can at least see somewhat.
Yeah, we'll put the warlock up front.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I think that'll be funny, actually.
Well, what I was going to suggest was, am I able to find a lamp or like a gas lamp or something that I can at least try to ignite to see if that actually helps with illuminating the room at all?
Yeah, sure. Just a cursory glance around, you can actually see that there are several oil lamps at various locations on walls, including one right next to the door.
Okay.
You can sort of like just kind of like break it off its little mounting if you wanted to.
Yeah, if we
Yeah, absolutely. If I can
Also-
reach
set the whole
it.
place on fire, it'll be very
That
bright.
news, sacred weapon is my weapon only. Sorry, guys. So I can cast it if you
That's
want.
Well,
You
let
probably
me
need
try
more
this
than we do.
first, and then we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just want to light the little lamp? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as you just use some flint and steel to light this little lamp, you find that it does sputter to life, although the light that it casts seems to not go as far as you would think it does. In fact, the light that it casts only reaches down to about halfway down your arm.
Okay. Okay, well that didn't seem to have worked at all.
Okay. I'm going to make my weapon sacred. So it sheds a bright light in 20-foot radius and dim light in 20 feet after that. It gives me some bonuses for like when we're doing combat, but
Well,
All right.
we'll just have to deal with it.
Okay, so casting this, you're casting it on your weapon?
Yep.
Okay.
It's already
Uh,
magical, so
Yeah. So as you cast this spell on your weapon, it does indeed glow, but it only glows for half the distance. It only illuminates for half the distance that you would expect.
we
instead
have
of
10 and then 10 dim. So about dim.
is it casting light on it, or is it a different spell?
This is a channel divinity
Okay.
spell. So it casts it on the sword, and so the sword emits a bright light 20 feet,
Yeah.
and then an extra 20 feet after that. So I'm guessing we're only getting 10, and then the 10 of dim,
Yes, exactly.
Okay. which is better than nothing
Yes.
because I can't see.
All right. So in this foyer area, you have the door going back out, which is facing directly south. To your north, straight ahead, there is a hallway on the left side, which goes alongside some stairs on the right side going up. And then on either side of you guys, there are open doorways leading to other rooms.
Well,
Okay, now the important question. Should we split up to investigate separately to cover more ground, or should we stick together seeing as it's quite dark and we're not really too sure?
I'm good with either. Maybe two teams, or we could all
Like
just.
splitting up sounds more exciting.
It does.
Yes. More trouble will start.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then,
So, who is going with whom?
well, considering I
What
can
light
kind of...
sources we have.
Yeah, I was going to say, considering I can kind of see through this with my dark vision, still it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing at all. I'm happy to be party leader 1, and Kelly can be party leader 2, and whoever wants to go with who.
Okay.
I suggest we get a tank with each party. So
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, well, I don't know. I'll go with Emil, I guess, because we both will be able to see the same with that light, if that works.
okay.
All right, cool. So who is going where and doing what right now?
I would like to go and try find the entrance to the cellar to see if I can figure out what that noise was coming from.
Okay.
Did you want to go back outside and check that?
Oh
or do you
no,
wanna
as
find
in from the inside. Now
Okay.
that we're inside, to try find an entrance.
We probably want to go down then.
Yep.
Okay. So you guys are currently essentially at the very center of the house, and there is an east wing and a west wing. The house is much wider than it is deep. It's probably about 30 feet deep, and then maybe 70 feet wide. And then it is 2 stories with a smaller third story on the top center. If you, depending upon where you want to go, just like specify north, south, east, west. That'll make things a little easier. Emil and Matt, we'll just say you're team 1, and then Gab and Kelly, we'll say you're team 2. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Okay. So where is team 1 going?
Well, we want to find a way down, so I guess which way looks like it might lead to that more to you, man?
You guys would know that the outside entrance to the cellar is on the west side of the house, which
Okay,
is to
so
your
west.
left.
We head west.
West.
Okay. And team 2, what are you guys doing?
I kind of look at Gab and I'm just like,
East.
Okay.
we did see a light up top, but I don't know how far we want to go.
Stairs are spooky, though, man.
Well, how about we clear the ground level first?
All right, clear.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go all out. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
How about
so-
we just clear the ground level first and make sure that everything's good. If everything's fine on the ground level, David and I will go to the cellar level, and the 2 of you can go to the second level.
We'll split up then. Different directions.
Okay.
Alrighty. So team 1, you wanted to just head directly to the left?
Yeah, I'll go first because I'm angry and also I'm a little less squishy than
Okay.
than Emil.
So do a perception check as you enter
course.
this next room.
Okay, let's see. Takes forever to get back to this roll 20. Okay. I got a 4.
Okay.
Oh,
So
Very good.
yeah, as you enter this room off to your left, you can see that it looks like a large dining room. There is a there's a large table going down the center of it, and it's tough to see in this sort of limited circumstance where there's this sort of like cloying darkness. It's very tough to get a read on whatever is in this room. What you can see is that heading in, along the right side is the front of the house with, it looks like 3 windows, all of which are covered with white curtains. You can just barely see a hint of moonlight coming through the white curtains. And then on the right side, there is a wall, and it looks like another doorway. And then it seems like the wall continues for a bit.
Okay. Is anything else look interesting in here? There's a lot of dust on the table, kind of like it's not been used in a while.
Do an investigation check.
Sure. That is a 12.
Okay, so looking farther into this room and looking at whatever is on the table, it is very, very dirty and in a lot of disarray. You can see what looks like the remains of place settings on the table that look like they have been sitting there for years. They have a thick coating of dust, and it looks like they haven't actually been disturbed recently. However, as you approach sort of the middle of the table, facing towards the back of the house on that side, there is a pile of all kinds of different objects, including several books and what look like, at first glance, to be small furry piles, almost like skins of animals or something. And looking at the floor around this, you can see that it's a complete mess. There's stains on the floor. It looks really gross. And then as you approach the far end of the room, you can see that there's another doorway at the far end of the room leading into another room. You can't really see into that room. It's still a little too far. But that's all you can really make out in this space is the main dining table and the chairs, which have kind of been pushed apart at that center part by the back end side of the table, and maybe like a small cabinet or two holding some like cutlery and dishes and such. All right, what is Team 2 doing?
We are going to check out the other side.
All right, cool.
Just quickly, would it
Yes.
be possible if I could cast Dispel Magic?
You certainly can try. Yeah.
Because that could also help both parties in this instance.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, absolutely. Let's see here.
It's one of my level 3 spells. Do you want me to read it out, or have you found it?
No, I'm looking at it right now. I'm just making sure that I know exactly what kind of check you're going to need to do.
Cool.
Okay. 1 second, because there will be some things we need to do. It's going to be a second. Okay. Alrighty, so any spell of 3rd level or lower on the target ends. Alrighty, so yes, you can cast Dispel Magic, and
So that's a d20 plus my bonus.
yes. Let's see here. The DC equals 10 plus the spell's level, but any spell of 3rd level or lower on the target ends. So as you cast Dispel Magic, the previously unnaturally dark area around you sort of brightens up, and you suddenly become a lot more comfortable, realizing that you can now see the distance that you are used to seeing in this room, and you find that looking around, you can actually see a bit more into the foyer behind you, as well as the doorway leading into the room just off to the side of this dining room. You can actually see fully into there, and it looks like an area probably that's like just outside a kitchen where they have a lot of like prep areas for food and that type of thing. It also looks like it's a mess, though without going in there you can't really see too much. Now, back to Team 2. You guys still find yourselves in pretty uncomfortable darkness. It is oppressive and unnerving how dark it is. What would you like to do?
My character is going to be clinging to the wall, just like hand on the wall the entire time.
Okay. And Kelly, what would you like to do?
I'm very quietly whispering about my Kurds tenant, saying, never fear, as I kind of just make almost like a circle in the room just to see if I can map it out with the light that I have.
Okay. So coming into this room, which is off to your right on the east side of the building, in the east wing, you find yourselves in what looks to be a large library. It is a good 30 feet long and probably 15 feet deep. And at the very end of the library, there is a large fireplace. In 2 separate locations in the library, one closer to the door you just entered and one closer to the fireplace, there are 2 large sofas along with a couple of like easy chairs and coffee tables, and there is a large writing desk on the north wall, which appears to have lots of books stacked on it.
Can we light the fireplace?
Sure, you can go ahead and try.
Okay.
So going over to the fireplace, you see that it looks like the fire that might have been in there a long time ago has burnt out, and it's mostly just ashes in there. you try burning some books or something if you wanted to light a fire, but yeah, it doesn't look like there's any firewood nearby.
Okay. We'll try burning some of the books. So I'll just grab a bunch of random books
Okay.
that I don't have the meaning for, throw them in.
Okay. So as you toss them in there and use your flint and steel to just light them up, they do light up pretty easily. It seems like these books have not been well taken care of, and they're all very dried out. And you can tell that a lot of the pages are yellow or brown with age. And they light up almost immediately, and they start to burn fairly quickly. You do notice that the light that you would expect to be shed from this fire doesn't go out farther than maybe 10 feet out from the fireplace. And beyond that, it's just more pitch darkness.
Is there anything on the desk worth looking at, other than books, or like any scrolls or notes? Or
Do an investigation check.
oh boy, it's not that bad, but my intelligence is pretty bad. 13.
So rifling through some of the contents of this desk, you do find that several of these books are not just books, but they're actually diaries. And it seems like each diary has been stamped with a different year on the cover. Until you find that there is so you find 3 that have years stamped on the front covers, and then a 4th one which actually does not have a year stamped on the front cover, and it actually looks a lot different than the others, like a different make. Whereas the others were very finely bound with thick, stiff bindings, this one is a leather-bound journal. And it does have a date on the inside, scrawled on the first page, along with, down in the corner, the signature of Matilda Hodgson. And you find that, comparatively, the handwriting in the first ones, which also appear to be Matilda's, the handwriting in this one seems a lot more rough and less refined looking, and as you just kind of flip through this diary, it seems like the handwriting gets more and more loose, and you start to see things like diagrams, times and dates, lists of ingredients, and you also find a couple of sketches of what looks like a woman of some sort. They're not very good sketches, and they you can only find a few similarities between each of them, but they all look like they were probably meant to be the same person.
Okay. I mean, as I rifle through it, does this make sense to me? Are there images or diagrams that I recognize, or?
Do an Arcana check.
Okay, I'm also gonna call our road friend over. That's a 12.
So you wouldn't necessarily know what most of these specific symbols, diagrams, and other illustrations necessarily are, but you do absolutely recognize that these are largely related to necromancy and the general practice of magically playing with life and death.
Okay. I'm going to hold on to this until I find our warlock.
Okay. All right. What is Team 1 doing?
I just wanted to double check to make sure, in terms of my dispel magic, if it passed, wouldn't it dispel the entire spell for everybody, not just me? Or is there something else going on that I didn't pass in order for it to only work on me?
Do an Arcana check with advantage.
Okay. Uh, 12.
That's with advantage. So rolling twice.
So as in, so one was a 6 and one was a 12.
Okay. After a few moments of contemplating what exactly might be going on here, because it seems like at the the room at the far end of this dining room seems only like you're only able to partially see into it. It seems like, from your experience, someone must have used multiple instances of casting the darkness spell on this house.
Okay.
So there is, you get the impression that in whatever parts of this house, there are various instances of that spell, and each one would have to be dispelled either individually or whatever. So
Sure.
upon casting the dispel magic spell, you did eliminate some of them in the room that you're in and around, but it still remains in other areas.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you would know, given the range of the dispel magic spell, that if there were further instances of the darkness spell being cast above you, they would have also been dispelled, just as a sort of area of effect.
Cool.
So that's something that you would just know innately.
Sure. Okay. Perfect.
All right. So what do you guys want to do?
I guess we keep exploring and looking around because the ultimate goal was to clear the ground floor just in case we happen to stumble across a Matilda or anything else, and if not, to find the entrance to the cellar.
Emil, before we go, I lean over. I was like, I'll give you a copper if you touch the stuff in the corner. Those like pile of dirty skins.
Sure. I go over and
Just rub your hand in real good.
Just a simple kind of like, just really lackadaisically.
Okay. Going over to this pile of, there are books and papers, and there's actually a knife stuck into the table at one point. There are some burnt down candles. What are you trying to touch? Just any of it? Just
There's
like
that pile of
thing,
disgusting skins. Yeah.
okay.
I did just whatever is at reach, but then now that I'm getting closer, like I'll touch it, but then I'll also kind of just roughly investigate to see if there's anything of import or interest.
Okay. Do a Constitution saving throw.
You're getting your money's worth, man.
Absolutely. Where's my con? Okay. D20 plus 3. Oh shit! Okay, that's a critical fail plus.
So 4 total. Yeah. So as you walk up to this just dirty, gross, dingy looking area on the center of this table, you kind of look at it and back to your friend. You're just like, okay, and you just kind of like reach out and touch, and you feel this sort of like almost electrical shocking sensation traveling up your hand and into your arm. And as this happens, you see these black veins extend up your arm, and you take I just dropped that die. There we go. You take 4 necrotic damage. As the sort of general essence of this, what appears to be some kind of disgusting altar, unleashes its necrotic energies into your body. After a moment, as you pull your hand away, the pulsing in your veins and this black, almost looks like the ooze is going into your veins. It sort of like fades again, and you feel almost like your hand is stiff for a moment before it wears off.
I would probably almost say that I've experienced something similar to this in my past once before when messing around with things. But okay, I kind of just like and then try to shake it off as much as I can, but then in that case just kind of continue to investigate to see if there's anything else that really you mentioned it was like some scrolls and like a knife, and
yes,
sort of want to see if there's anything.
From looking around at this, you wouldn't even need to make an investigation check. You can tell, especially given your background, that this is some sort of makeshift altar of necromantic power. There are like those skins you can now see are actually eviscerated corpses of small animals. And given your background, you would know that somebody was practicing right here. Somebody was trying to figure out what exactly goes into essentially raising something from the dead. And it doesn't seem like they succeeded very well, but you can tell, given like all the symbols and stuff that you can see on various scrolls and in these books, that yeah, this is some gross shit that they're doing.
Okay. So I relay that to David and just mention that they weren't very successful. They seemed that they were trying and experimenting with. They seemed really unsure, and I want my copper as well.
I slap him on the shoulder and say, that was stupid, and give him his copper.
All right. Do you guys want to do anything else in this room before we go back to Team 2?
Yeah, like in that case, then if there was nothing, we would proceed to the next room, and then Team 2 can do whatever they need to do. But we can come back to us after that.
Right.
Okay. So then Team 2, what are you doing? You guys are currently in the library, and it looks like there is a doorway leading into another room at the back of the house.
Next room?
Yeah, we can go in the next room to check that out.
Okay. As you enter the next room, this pervasive magical darkness is still sort of in effect around you, and looking into this room, it feels just something feels off. It seems like this room is essentially empty. I want you both to do perception checks.
Okay.
19.
All right,
Three.
so 3. Kelly, the general feeling that you get from this room sort of sends you into almost like a tailspin, and you're like, "What? What is this? Whoa! Hang on! Whoa!" Meanwhile, Gab, like instantly feeling this, given your training and your past, your instant gut instinct is to turn around and try and figure out what the hell is standing behind you that's giving you the heebie-jeebies. And looking directly behind you, it looks like you're looking into the front door. So looking into the hallway where there are the stairs, and off to the right and left are the rooms that you guys split up to enter. So it doesn't look like you're looking into the library anymore. It looks like you're looking into the front door.
Should we try to open the front door to see if that's actually where we are?
Well, it almost looks like you are looking into the front door with the front door open so that you can actually like see into the places that you just came from.
Okay.
We can try moving.
Okay. Let's cautiously move around the room.
Yeah, sure.
With our shoulders all the way up and just...
Okay, so looking around this room very briefly, it seems like the more you go along the wall right next to the door you just came in, just the farther it goes until something about it just makes it seem like you have to like turn around and see where you are, just like in reference to everything else, because it seems like it's going farther out in that direction than like the far wall of the library did, and it seems like you just have kept walking for a longer time than you should have. And turning around, you can actually see that you've not even made it 5 feet past the doorway where you had just entered from.
All right. Okay. Do I have anything? No. I'm out of options.
What you gonna do?
I'm pretty stumped.
Okay, well, you guys are chewing on that. Let's go back to Team 1. So, you guys going to proceed into the next room?
Yep. Proceeding further.
So, proceeding into the next room, it looks like this is a pretty small room. It's only about 15 feet by 15 feet. And there is still that kind of oppressive darkness over most of the room, aside from the entrance. But after taking a circuit around the room, you see that it's actually sort of a sitting area with a nice fireplace, some very comfy couches, a couple of bookshelves, and a small bar in one corner. It looks like the almost everything is covered in a thick coating of dust, as if it hasn't been disturbed in years. The bar is it's not really a bar. It's more just like a table with some decanters and stuff. Every single piece of glass on this bar is shattered.
And does that look like that was done recently, or is that also covered in the same dust as everything else?
It looks like it's covered in the same dust as everything else.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I'll poke around the bar a little bit, I guess. Maybe there's something. I don't know what I'm looking for, but could be something hidden around there.
Okay. Go up. As you're going up to the bar, you can actually see that laying on the ground nearby, also covered in a pretty thick layer of dust, is one of the fireplace pokers, just laying on the floor.
That's not where that should be. That's very slightly suspicious, but I don't know. I'll pick it up. Does it look like it was a place it should go in this room, or is there?
It looks like it was just probably used to break all the glass and then just tossed on the floor.
Gotcha. Okay. I don't know. I'll just hold on to it, I guess. Why not?
All right. So you pick up the fireplace poker. Okay. Team 2, what are you doing?
Can we check the floorboards? Is anything...
Do an investigation check.
Okay. $16.
All right, so looking at the floorboards, they all seem... I mean, they're all pretty solid. You don't notice any sort of weird seams or anything, but they all do seem weirdly uniform. And as you look at them a little more, you start to notice patterns, and you realize all these floorboards just repeat. You can actually see the same floorboard in multiple locations from where you're standing, even in the darkness. You can see that they have all the same knots, all the same sort of waves and such. Even some of the rust patterns around some of the nails holding them down look completely identical. And it just seems like extending out into the darkness, this just repeats. It almost seems like there is only a space of maybe 8 by 8 feet, and beyond that it repeats everything. So 8 by 8 feet in front of the doorway.
You can see the tiling.
Yeah, exactly. You can sort of see the texture tiling, essentially.
That's how we all get that.
So what do you want to do?
Can I shoot an arrow out of the door and see if it actually makes it out?
And out into the hallway where you entered the room? Sure, yeah. Go for it.
Okay. What do I roll something
that would be
for that?
that would be an attack roll. So you would let's see, that would be you'd roll a d20 and then add 3. And I mean, are you trying to hit a specific target? Because I mean, you can just randomly shoot an arrow back there.
I'm just trying to randomly shoot an arrow.
Oh well, then yeah. You just draw back and release, and it goes straight through the door, sails along for a little bit, and then sticks into one of the stairs. And you can actually hear in the distance a kind of like a thud as something impacts in the distance. It sounds like it comes from the same direction that you would expect it to, given your orientation with the original staircase, but it also actually echoes through the doorway you're looking through. It's a very odd effect. It almost seems like it comes from 2 different places.
Oh man, what do we do?
Yeah. I mean, did you recognize the pattern, or was this something you could follow to break the room's weird effect?
Yeah, it seems like all of the floorboards in this room just repeat.
Well, we can backtrack. or we could be determined and keep walking forward.
To eternity. Well.
No victory without risk.
Do you guys want to go back through the doorway or stay in this room?
Let's go. Well, if we keep going forward, are we gonna just keep walking forever, or?
That's what it seems like. It seems like it just you keep walking and it just keeps going, at least as far as you know.
At least as far as we know, so there's a chance that we can keep going.
I mean,
Want to walk for like 10 minutes and then give up?
Okay, yeah, let's walk for 10 minutes. And then...
so walking for 10 minutes, you just keep going, and that's gonna bring us back to Team 1. We'll get through a few things that they're doing, and then we'll loop back around to you guys. Sounds good? All right. So Team 1, what are you doing?
In the air.
Okay, so if we've entered this room, we've discovered the broken glass and the source of the broken glass. Everything is covered in dust. Does this room have any other doorways? Is it just only the entrance?
There's just the one door that you came in. The only other doorway that you saw is the one going out of the dining room.
Okay. And just like having a quick glance, nothing else really seems out of the ordinary.
Nothing really sticks out to you, no.
No death altars in here.
Not that you can see.
Then I guess we just head back and go through the other door, still trying to find the cellar entrance.
Okay.
The fire poker lead the way.
Yeah, just give me a couple of investigation checks.
Okay.
A couple of them, hey? Cool.
Yeah, let's see.
So essentially one for each room on the other side of this, because there are 2 other rooms, which I don't feel bad about spoiling.
Okay.
So first is an 11, second is a 9. Very good rolls.
First one for me is an 8, and the second is an 11.
All right. So as you walk back through the dining room and into that sort of anteroom on the other side, you can see that it is sort of a it looks like it would mostly be used by servants who are like preparing dishes and about to bring them out to the dining room. And then the next room is actually a kitchen. And walking through the sort of swinging door into the kitchen, you can see that the dust on the floor has been disturbed fairly recently, and it seems fairly consistent as well. Most of the kitchen is untouched, but the stove, it's sort of a wood-burning stove, and some of the pots and pans around it look like they have been disturbed fairly recently. There's nothing else that really sticks out to you in this room. There are a couple of large pots and one of what looks like a cauldron off in one corner. And the cauldron doesn't seem like it's been used recently, though it has slightly less dust than some of the other things in this area. It looks like somebody was using the same things over and over again for a while and just coming back to the same spot.
Seeing there's a lot of dust and like that kind of sort of thing throughout the house, would it be possible, or can I like at least figure out whether the house has actually been abandoned for a long time and now it's maybe just being used, or is it just like certain rooms have been unused and the rest of the house is normal? Judging
by what you've seen in the past couple of rooms, it almost seems like somebody has been ignoring certain rooms, just simply not going into them.
Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.
Do you guys want to head back out of this room and see what's? So there was a doorway going out of the previous room that you were in, that sort of staging area. Do you want to go back out there?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I don't feel like there's much here. I don't know about you, how you feel, Neil.
So
no, absolutely.
Yeah. So back out in that area, you can see there's the door into the dining room, and then straight ahead of you guys, coming out of the kitchen, there is a doorway that leads into the rear of the house. You can actually see through that doorway. There's another doorway across, and then a doorway that leads out, presumably to that back porch area.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so the back porch is probably not, well, it's worth investigating, but it's not like my ultimate goal.
Right.
I'm trying to find, or at least which door would roughly take me, I guess, closer to wherever the cellar entrance could be.
Okay. So if you go out the door at the back of the current room you're in, the one that leads to presumably the the back porch and then some other room on the other side. This room actually this exit looks like it goes through the middle of the house. And just judging by what you've seen before, it looks like this leads back to that central hallway with the staircase.
Okay. Well, if we're going to go back to where we came from, then I would suggest we go to something that we haven't been to before. So we'll go through one of the other doors.
Okay. As you go through this door, just both of you do perception checks. You'd be looking around specifically for stuff like this anyway. So this is just kind of the course
7.
of that.
Just one or multiple?
Just one.
Okay. 7.
Well, we'll use Matt if it's just roll, Matt.
Mine is a 7. Yeah. That's it.
All right. So as you come out of this doorway, it's pretty clear there is a different section of floor off to your right as you're approaching the doorway on the other side of the hallway in front of you.
Okay.
It's a different floor?
Yeah.
It looks different, yes.
Yeah. It's different in what way? Are the
Looks
materials different?
It looks like it has, different floorboards or something.
Do they look more modern than the rest of the house, or is it older? Or
Do an investigation check.
Okay. 21.
Yeah, so initially you didn't even notice it at first because there is still some lingering magical darkness in this area. But now as you approach, you do see that this is a wooden door in the floor, which is just at the back end of the bottom of the staircase.
So it's a wooden door on the floor. Okay.
Yes.
That sounds like what we want.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I want to get to.
Along with seeing this on the floor, you would notice just the general arrangement of floorboards around, and you see something that just weirdly catches your eye in the doorway that was now standing in front of this door on the floor. Just off to your left is the doorway that was across from the one you just came in. You notice that there is just like the same knot in a piece of wood on the floor, or a floorboard, as there is just inside that doorway. And it's just a little odd to you.
Okay, so we too are starting to notice the repeating patterns in the floor.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to bring us back to Team 2 now. What are you guys doing?
After like 10 minutes, I'm
Are we
exhausted.
still walking?
I'm just like, let's go back.
And I'm like determined, and I'm like just step forward, and I'm like, I finally give in and say, all right, we can turn around.
As you turn around, you see that the door has not shifted an inch. You have been at the edge of that, Mario 64 staircase sort of situation for the entire 10 minutes that you have been walking.
I try to look as composed as possible, and then I'm like, should we go find them? Or another way around?
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Easier, not far.
Yeah, so walking back through the door, you find yourselves in the library again. Walking back through, you walk through the front door and you can see off to your right is the library you were just in. Off to your left is a slightly lighter dining room, and standing directly in front of you down the hall are two familiar figures, those of your friends. They appear to be looking at something on the floor.
I let them know about the horrible room of endlessness, and then I hand our warlock the book and hopes that he might have a better time with it.
Here's a moldy book.
Yeah, Emil, do an investigation check, this time with advantage.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, shit. Okay, so it's a third. 13.
Oh, so
Oh, sorry, 11.
Yeah.
Sorry, 11.
So you'd roll twice and take the higher of the two.
Yeah.
Okay. So you flipping through this book, you do notice the same sort of patterns that she saw, along with the deteriorating handwriting. But a few words catch your eye, and you realize, there's not just like weird necromantic shit in here. There is also what appear to be like love letters. Like, you're able to sort of like see that there is this weird magic-y stuff, but the contrast of that with the actually kind of sweet letters to someone kind of catch your eye. And then flipping back through it, you all sort of take a look at this journal, and it seems like some of them are actually some of these pages have been like the ink is running in certain spots where it looks like someone probably cried onto the pages. And flipping back through it, you realize someone was writing letters essentially to someone in the form of this diary, and saying that they were going to get them back. And the more that you read it, the more it becomes clear that it is a woman writing to another woman. It sounds like almost like her former lover or something. And there's talk about something about that bastard, and that some sort of male figure who is never actually named, but is always referred to with like sort of just essentially long strings of expletives. And flipping through more and more of these, you realize that Matilda was writing letters to another woman, and referring to her husband using only insults. And it becomes clear that something terrible happened. There was a falling out, or somebody died or something like that. It's unclear given the context, and she never actually mentions explicitly what happened, but it's clear that something absolutely horrendous happened, and now she is trying to use this necromantic magic to bring someone back.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was a bit unsure of by getting, when you said to get her back was more like revenge, get her back, or bring her back, but bring her back. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I relay this to the party, that this is going on, that there seemed to be some kind of quarrel, and I think possibly if Matilda's trying to bring somebody back, I have a suspicion that maybe possibly in the basement or the cellars where we may find this. I've noticed in the other room there was some really poor attempts of necromancy, none of which were successful. But I'm not sure if there is any evidence of being successful downstairs in the cellar. What did you
know
guys
where it
find?
is?
The cellar? Well, we may have found it. This looks like a door in the floor here. We just found it just now, just before you guys approached.
If we're unsure, I can use my divine senses to help us pinpoint any kind of questionable things in nature.
There might be a few of those around here.
That's what I'm afraid of. Mm-hmm.
So do you actually want to use your divine sense?
I have a couple charges of it, so I suppose it doesn't hurt.
Okay. Yeah, so as you sort of essentially sit down and just focus, you're able to more or less extend your consciousness, and using your devotion to your god and the assistance from your god, you're actually able to pinpoint various things, but specifically what you feel around you is a strong, very conflicting sense of both good and evil. It's a strange sensation, and one that's unlike ones that you have felt before. Being an adventurer, you'd have encountered things like zombies and people who have a generally good aura about them, but this one it's bizarre. You feel a strong sense of passion and devotion coming from directly below you, and you also feel the sense that something is completely off and very, very disturbing. And the more that you focus, the more that you find that you notice the sensation of the skull that is in Gab's bag. It is just permeated with an evil necromantic energy. And there is also even more of it coming from almost directly below you and to the west side of the house.
I relate all of that.
So you guys want to try pulling up the door and seeing what's down there?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
All right.
Does it look like it's a strength check kind of thing, or?
No, it actually looks like it is it's a door in the floor that is in fairly good condition. It's not rusty or anything like that. It just looks like you'd have to kind of like lift it up, and it would do whatever it is that doors going down in basements do, which is probably like extending a staircase or something.
I stopped the group for a second. I go, if I wasn't just inundated with all of this horrible sense of dread, I probably wouldn't care. But before we go down, I cast Bless and I give it to everybody.
Okay, cool.
So what that is for you guys is everybody, when you make an attack roll or saving throw, you add a d4 to that.
Handy.
Cool.
To the attack roll or the saving throw. Yeah, cool. All right, so you now have the Bless effect on all of you. Do you want to open the door and go down?
Yep.
Let's do it.
That's exactly what I do.
All right. So, opening the door, you are all hit by the smell of rotting flesh. This is something that you would all have smelled, whether it was just a rat rotting in your wall or the smell of corpses and zombies that you've encountered in previous adventures. But looking directly down into the basement, you see a long staircase going maybe 15 feet down, and at the bottom of the staircase you see flickering red light like fire and candle light. And from below you hear someone sobbing incoherently, and our sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
You okay?
Yeah, just a bubble in there. Yeah.
Was that a pizza roll?
No, thank God, it was not a pizza roll, and that will remain a private joke for both me and Matt. Both our paladin and our cleric would know what some of the sounds are emanating from the basement, and really, Emil, you would recognize a few words as well. Someone is between sobs trying to use some sort of spell of something disturbing. I mean, they're necromancy and general evil destructive spells all share a lot of the same vocabulary, and you do hear a lot of the same words emanating from the basement.
I guess I just proceed with that knowledge and just I'm preparing. I'm already getting a sneaking suspicion of what's happening, but I sort of keep it to myself for now.
All right. So as you walk down into the basement, it seems to get warmer and warmer. What is our marching order here? So Emil is going down first, followed by...
I can go behind him, or just with one of the tanks.
Okay, so Emil, Kelly...
And then I'll go third.
Matt with Gab bringing up the rear. So Emil, as you walk down these stairs, they sort of creak a little bit under your weight, and you feel this, not just the sense of heat, but this almost palpable sense of dread washing over you as you enter this space. And coming to the bottom of the stairs, it's a dirt floor. It looks like the entire basement has just been dug out of the earth rather than furnished. And it only extends off to your right-hand side, which is towards the western end of the house. Everything to the east is just a wall. And turning the corner at the bottom of the stairs, you see a very makeshift altar made from a wooden table. Upon that altar, you see a desiccated corpse, illuminated by firelight from torches on every side. Now, despite the fact that there are lots of torches down here, it is much warmer than you would expect. I mean, you've been around torches your entire life. You know how much heat they give off. It is way, way hotter in here than you would expect it to be. and kneeling on the floor in front of this makeshift altar, surrounded by candles at specific points in a circle, and also surrounded by rings of salt poured on the floor. You see the old woman from before, hunched over, hands on the dirt ground. One hand raises up, and you can see that it's actually covered in blood up to her elbow. And she chants part of an incantation. And along the walls, you can actually see piles of dead bodies of various stages of decomposition. All of them young female bodies, completely stripped naked, many of them covered in, it doesn't look like their own blood, but blood that was put on them in both symbols and in large splashes. You see one body laying on the floor right next to the altar, a fairly fresh-looking body. Bruises cover most of the torso, and you can see that just from this angle, it looks like a young girl of maybe 16 or 17, something like that. And the old woman lowers her hand again and sort of pushes down farther and farther. And as she pushes down farther, and this is only happening over a couple seconds, the symbols and circles on the floor around her, the salt and sand and other materials that make this up, start to pulse with a reddish glow. What do you want to do?
So I'm guessing the other body of the other female, they are deceased, or do they look dead to me?
Do a perception check.
Perception. 16.
Coming to the bottom of the stairs and just pausing for a second to take in this entire scene. Initially, you can't tell if the body is moving or not, but then you do see the chest just barely rise and fall.
That's not good.
I just yell out and be like, "Stop! Whatever you're doing," and just to
This is
see
the
if she would
police.
actually like
Oh yeah,
respond at
this
all.
is battle time, guys.
All right. Is there anything that you want to actually physically do aside from yelling?
No. At this point, I just want to get her to stop the incantation if she would.
Yeah.
So letting out almost this yell from like the core of.
Could I
it
actually?
Sorry. Oh yes.
I have a cantrip here. I think it's called maybe it's minor illusion. I think,
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
which could like amplify my voice and do kind of crazy nonsense.
Yeah.
I was going to double check to see if that's the one I'm thinking of.
Are you thinking about thaumaturgy?
No. This one's it's called minor illusion. You create a sound or an image of an object within range that lasts for the duration. The illusion also ends if you dismiss it as an action or cast this spell again. So essentially, I can like whisper. I can turn a whisper into a scream. I could like make like a copy of myself or something like that.
Yeah. So how would you like to use this as you are yelling at her?
So essentially, it's more to just kind of sound more imposing, more kind of menacing, like almost kind of like that scene in, I guess, kind of like in Lord of the Rings Fellowship, where Gandalf talks to Bilbo and everything kind of like gets dark and his voice kind of changes. It's more just changing my voice in terms of that, where everything is just like echoey and it's like an ominous voice.
All right. So as you just almost instinctively use this ability of yours, you amplify your voice, and it seems like a lot of the torches in the room suddenly dim as you exert the force of your inherent arcane abilities and impose them onto this scene. And for just a second, the chanting that this sobbing ancient-looking woman is doing falters and stops, and you can see that she collapses onto the floor for a second and then looks back at you, and you can see the one milky eye actually turning to look in your direction, trying to sort of see exactly what you are doing and who you are. And she then just screams at you, "No! No! You have ruined everything!" And it's this shrill, shrieking voice that seems sort of unnatural, almost as if it's echoing out of the floor. And at that point, she she turns, and she's still on her knees. Ooh, I'm knocking over my mic. And she screams at you and falls to all fours, and you can see that she actually like almost vomits a little, and this black ooze comes out and just runs down her chin. You can see that the blood that was all the way up to her elbow actually extends farther up onto her body, almost like crawling up her skin, and she just shrieks. It's this inhuman sound, and around her the symbols on the floor, which have grown dim since she stopped chanting, suddenly light up, and all of them actually catch on fire around her in a circle. You can see that she pulls back from the flames a little bit, and just vomits again. There's just and you can now see that it's actually like coagulated blood, just streaming out. It almost looks like she drank some sort of blood or something as part of this ritual. And she screams and screams again. And as she screams, you can see that the body of the young woman on the floor starts to convulse, and the desiccated corpse on the table starts to shake in tandem with the body on the floor.
Well, that's not good.
Unless somebody else wants to do something, feel free.
Should we take out the skull? See how she reacts?
That's actually not a bad idea when you think about it.
Is that a bad, like, it sounds like a bad idea.
So we are pretty much convinced that she's the one, but I'm just asking, like.
Oh no, like absolutely,
I'd say we're
like
convinced.
just by looking around, me as like the investigative like character, yeah, like I was already under the impression that she was collecting the female bodies and using that to bring about this lover that she had, and especially by looking around the floor, we can definitely see.
I mean, at this point, like all of that happy, positive, bubbling, nature, just like it's gone. And you see, I'm just stone faced. I'm furious, and I kind of like hold my weapon at the ready, and I just tell her, I'm like, "You're going to pay, and I will bring justice to you." And then I brace to attack.
All right. What do the rest of you want to do while she is getting ready to attack?
I'm going to at least try to, I guess, cast Dispel Magic again to see if there's any way that I can, I guess, stop or prevent this spell continuing any further.
Okay. One
Just body check the old lady.
No,
on
that's
the
good
way.
because I have one maybe attempt, but I don't know if it's gonna work.
Okay. 1 second while I look something
Sure, no
up.
problem, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, I've got it. So you want to cast Dispel Magic?
Yes, I would like to try.
Okay, cool. So get that up again. So let me just make sure I have both things at the ready. So it's gonna be 10 plus the spell's level. DC equals 10 plus the spell's level. I suppose I guess we'll check the spell ends. Okay. Using your spell. Okay. I need you to do a... let's see here. Do an ability check using your spellcasting ability modifier. So that's
Let's affect that.
I'm sorry?
Does bless affect that, or just saving throws and attacks?
Actually, well, if it's a saving throw saving throws and attacks would be different. This is an ability check as opposed to a saving throw. So that your spellcasting ability modifier is going to be, let's see, that's going to be +6. So roll a
+6.
Yeah, roll a d20 and add 6.
Perfect. 21.
Nice.
All right. So as you start to trace the symbols in the air with your hand to start casting this dispel magic ritual and utter the components of it, this just hideous woman on the floor starts to chant, trying to fight against this. And there is you can feel this brief moment where she is actually actively imposing her will upon you. But then you are just instinctively stride forward a couple of steps, tracing the lines in the air. And as this happens, you can see that the lines sort of start to be traced in the air with not just your finger, but actually glowing lines, which sort of spring out and evolve into this multi-dimensional array of symbols and shapes and lines, which are all interlocking in three-dimensional space around your hand. And there is a brief moment where the spell falters and flashes, and then it grows in strength as you impose your will against it. And suddenly the entire room goes dark as all of these lines just fade out from your hand in a sort of almost shattering sound. And every single torch in the room is instantly extinguished, along with all of the flames on the floor surrounding the woman. And you can see with your dark vision now, this black and white image of a terrifying old crone on the floor, openly weeping with blood seeping out of her mouth. And the convulsing of the young woman on the floor has stopped. She's still breathing very heavily, but it seems that you were able to dispel whatever was going on in here.
Nice.
Nice.
Very good.
It is now completely pitch black, but it is not the magical darkness that you were used to
Is
seeing.
my sword
I
still?
was going to say, would the sword still be lit?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, yeah, the sword would be casting light. It's a... and it does cast enough light that you would be able to see off to this woman just openly weeping on the floor.
Now I'm trying to decide whether we attack this woman or whether we just try to apprehend her somehow.
I think until she does something further, maybe we don't.
We should try to
understand.
hold her down. Like, we can all jump on her and just, I don't know, like handcuff her.
We can ask her. I mean, like, I'll just say, do you admit to taking these girls and using them for your sacrificial purposes to whatever dark deeds you've been doing?
She
And oh, by the
sort
way,
of-
as I'm saying this, I'm gonna walk towards her, and I'm gonna walk towards the girl. Cause my first thought is, if it's not to like fight this woman, it's to like pick up the girl and bring her to safety.
Okay. As you're saying this to her, she looks up at you, and you can see that her normal eye is actually fixed on you, but her milky eye is actually looking off in some other direction, sort of like almost like examining something else. And she looks at you, the blood dripping down her naked, wrinkled form, and she says, "I admit everything. It was all worth it, and I'll do it again. I'll do it again."
I Eldritch Blast.
All right.
All right.
Do an attack roll.
Do I have to roll for each blast
It'd be,
again?
yeah, you'd attack. You'd do an attack roll for each one.
25 for the first,
Nice.
17 for the second.
Finally,
So-
really good.
So, one lances out and strikes her just on her upper chest, leaving a huge scorch mark. The other blasts across her one milky white eye, actually blasting a chunk out. Roll damage.
Whoop, whoop. Okay, so it's a 1d10 for each. Let's just do 2d10. Oh, terrible. 5 damage.
So you can see that the skin right here on her upper chest is sort of charred and smoking, and there's actually a spatter of blood and goo as her eyeball is actually just lanced out of her head, leaving a splatter of blood on the floor next to her. She screams in pain and spits more blood, this time actually from her injury rather than it being her vomiting it forth. You can see that her nose is slightly bleeding as well. And she sort of gets staggered back and then looks at you again with her one good eye and her one destroyed socket and just screams at the top of her lungs. It's just a shriek. Yep. And that's all she's going to do. She's just going to sit there on the floor looking at you with this one piercing eye, just wailing for longer than it seems like someone should be able to keep up that note.
Something doesn't
No
feel
one's gonna-
right if we keep attacking her. I don't know. I'm gonna pull out the skull. I'm gonna see what she does.
Okay, so pulling out the skull as Kelly is just walking right past her to get to the young girl lying on the floor, you're able to kind of like hold it up, and as soon as it leaves the bag that you were holding it in, her one eye just locks onto it, and just she shrieks even louder and starts scuttling back towards the makeshift altar, brushing along the floor. You can see that she's covered in dirt and blood. It's just disturbing and gross. She seems taken aback that this skull is now down here. Kelly, what are you doing?
Am I near the girl?
Yeah, you'd have just like walked right past and
Yeah,
you'd
I'm clearly fighting the urge to like wreck this woman. So I have more different things on my mind, and it's like I just pick up the girl and she's breathing, right?
She is breathing. It's kind of shallow and fast, but she is breathing.
As I like hold her in one arm, I'm gonna just like put one hand on her and cast Lay on Hands.
Okay.
Because I kind of just want to stabilize her.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna walk and bring her back to the party.
Okay.
So she's safe.
So as you're casting Lay on Hands, other stuff is happening behind you. It's going to take a couple seconds for all of that to resolve.
But
So, yeah.
there's something I want to do if the need arises, but my priority is this girl.
Okay, cool. Matt, what are you doing?
I just realized I should probably go help her because, healer and all that. So I'm gonna follow after a few seconds after she starts walking to the girl and
Okay.
just to see how. Yeah.
So as you are walking over, the woman who you are now essentially standing right next to or walking right next to is hit with these eldritch blasts and starts screaming and shrieking. She scuttles back to the altar by the side as the skull is pulled out. Emil, what are you doing?
Eldritch Blast again.
All right, cool. Do 2 more attack rolls.
No mercy.
The warlock knows what he wants to do.
Yeah, man. 12 and a crit.
All
26.
right. So the first one misses. It sort of slams into the ground as she's scuttling away. But the second one, you get a bead on her, and you manage to just target just right here, just below her throat.
Oh, hold on. Do I get the plus D4 for my attack roll for the first one? Would that make a difference?
Actually, if you want to roll that, you can.
You are blessed.
Oh, okay. I got a 1 on that, so the 13 changes.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it still misses.
Okay. Cool. That's fine.
But yes,
I'll
the
do
second
my-
one does hit.
Yep. So it's another 1d10
And then you double that number.
and
so
double, so 12.
All right. So this streaking bolt of energy just lances through the air again, striking her right in the solar plexus, blasting the air out of her lungs. And you can tell that she seems like she is in really rough shape. There's a huge scar across her chest now of just burn marks and ash, where her flesh was just turned into the cinders. Okay, Kelly, what are you doing?
I'm trying to like decide if justice means killing her or taking her in, and it's like a moral thing. uh, as I like bring the girl back to safety, and I like carefully put her at the foot of the stairs, I look at this woman and I say, "Will you answer for your crimes, or will you resist?"
Okay, cool. Hold on to that thought and remind me if I forget that you were saying that. Okay.
Sure.
Gab, what are you doing? You have the skull in your hand and you're showing it to this woman, and she's just scuttled back.
Get in her face.
Can we do something with the altar?
You can do whatever you want.
What if we put the skull on the altar?
If you want to go do that, you certainly can.
Yeah, we'll put the skull on the altar.
Okay, so you want to just walk up like right next to it and just be like, "Punk."
Yeah.
Now it's on the altar.
Take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Dunk the skull.
as you walk closer, holding the skull, her one good eye is locked on it, and she kind of shrinks back more and almost gets under the table. And as you bring it up and put it on the table just above her, she just like she stops screaming, and it's almost like there's this just hoarse sort of noise escaping from her throat where she just can't scream anymore. She's just been reduced to this animalistic state. Just you can see this like hate in her eye, and she sort of like pushes away from you, trying to push on your legs, but it just feels kind of feeble, almost like a child pushing against you. Matt, what are you doing?
Since Kelly brought the girl over, I'm going to tend to her and actually like give her some more healing, which I assume she probably needs.
Okay.
Cast a proper cure wounds.
All right, sweet. So as you do this, you can actually see the energy making its way through her body, and where there were very nasty bruises of various ages, some very fresh, others already turning sort of yellow and green. You can see as they actually sort of return to a normal fleshy color. Kelly, what exactly was it you were saying again? It was, will you answer?
I basically said, "Will you answer for your crimes?" And then I'm just waiting on her response. Also, I forgot, because she's naked, I like take off my like ridiculously expensive cloak and I put it on the girl.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I was basically like, "Hey, will you answer for your crimes or not?"
So as you are saying this, it's just after Gab has placed the skull on the altar. She locks eyes or eye with you, and she just you actually hear a voice in your head as she raises her hands, sort of like doing something, and she says, "The only crimes that I committed were caring." Emil, what are you doing?
Let's mix things up a little bit. I'm going to use Chill Touch, which is I create a ghostly skeletal hand in the space of a creature within range, make a ranged spell attack against the creature, and assail it with the Chill of the Grave. On hit, the target takes 1d8 necrotic damage, and it can't regain any hit points until the start of my next turn.
All right.
And you get to do a 2d8 on 5th level. So I'll try
All
that.
right, sweet. Go for it.
Don't forget your bless.
Okay, 1d20 plus 1d4 plus 6. 19.
Yeah, that definitely hits. So roll
All right.
damage.
So let's do. So if I do the 2d8, I guess that was the crit thing.
Yeah, it's just the crit thing.
So was it 2d8 or was it 2d10? Sorry. Can you have a quick look? Sorry about that. Damn, I just had it.
Chill touch. It's going to be 2d8.
Yep, it is 2d8. Perfect. 15 damage.
All right, so as your hand extends out to cast this spell, it's almost like your hand is twinned in the air and then extends forward, leaving a trail of sort of bluish, smoky energy. And
If possible,
yes,
if possible, if it's going to be a killing blow, could I have that hand choke and like try to snap the neck?
sure.
Damn, man.
Yeah. So this hand floats out from yours, and as it comes to her neck, you actually are able to sort of squeeze, and you feel just a bit of feedback in your hands. And as it squeezes onto her neck, you can see the fingers sinking into the flesh of her neck. That strangled, gurgling sound she was making sort of cuts off as she's no longer able to expel breath. You can see the fingers digging in, and from the indentations you see all the veins in her neck extending outward, filling with this necromantic energy, this blackness, which extends out and up onto her face and her head, coming down her chest. And as this happens, you hear one last convulsion, and you see her entire body racked with pain and panic as her one eye kind of bulges out, and until finally, after a few seconds of this squeezing on her neck, just digging in further, you hear her neck start to sort of squish and crunch inwards. And finally, the spell fades, and as it fades, you hear a death rattle as she falls backward under the table, a dead, blood-covered, just ancient-looking woman who, as she expires, appears to advance in age even farther. The wrinkles on her body growing deeper, her skin turning this gray pallor, and the blood that was sort of streaking up her arm farther as she grew more and more damaged actually slips off into a puddle underneath, and the blood streaming from her mouth, her eye, her nose, onto the floor below her. She is completely expired, and now has joined, as far as you know, her former lover.
I flick the copper that Dave gave me onto her dead body.
Do a dexterity check.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, please don't fail this.
Oh.
This is the only time that Tobin can actually be cool in front of people.
It just like lands in the dirt, like
Yeah, this is going to fail miserably, which
Yeah.
is perfect for Tobin anyway. Okay, +1. 4.
So the copper piece flicks off of your thumb, sails through the air, bounces off of her forehead, and then skitters off into the dirt somewhere behind the altar.
fitting.
And I'd just say, this is for the tall man. Leave it there.
So, with that, bringing the unconscious girl back, she sees all of you. She sees the holy robes of the woman holding her, and it just instinctively just squeezes tighter onto you, sobbing into your shoulder. You can hear between sobs a thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, almost incoherently. And over the next couple of hours, as you work your way back up the stairs, you find that the house is different somehow. It seems that whatever magical darkness was there has faded now, and the room that once was just repeating forever is now just a mess of broken furniture. Exploring the second floor, you find that there are even more corpses. You find more wrecked altars. And then finally you find the room where clearly this old woman was staying and practicing her necromantic arts. You find more diaries that tell of a torrid love affair that she had with a woman from a passing merchant caravan, and how her husband murdered her lover, and then she murdered her husband. And all of this coming to light, a lot of the pieces fall into place. And finally coming back into the town of Wulfbridge, you come to Orson's shop, and he's not there, but then shortly thereafter you find him drinking away his sorrows at the tavern, one of the last patrons there this night. And in his drunken state, he isn't even able to recognize his own daughter, but you bring him back to his home, and his daughter, now in a much better place and surrounded with much better people, welcomes you and offers to let you stay the night. And in the morning, they do have a very tearful reunion as he comes back to consciousness, very hungover, but incredibly glad of your help. And with the promise that whenever you are in Wulfbridge again, you will have a warm hearth and a warm, soft bed to stay in. And finally, making your way back to the guild hall, Bailey, the guildmaster of your specific chapter of the guild, welcomes you back, pays you for your troubles, and you are free to go about your next set of adventures. And with that, we will end this session. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this little adventure. I hope you guys had a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun, and I was really looking forward to a sort of a creepy Halloween-themed session. This one's actually going to be going out pretty soon, since Halloween is coming up over the next couple of days. Thank you guys for watching, however you're watching this, whether it's on YouTube or some other future service I'm not aware of yet. And I hope that I can welcome some of you guys back in the future for other games and maybe even some in-person games in the future. That'd be awesome.
Anytime, man.
Love to, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Emil, Matt, Gab, and Kelly. It was absolutely wonderful playing with you guys, and it's great to have like a group that really were able to get into what they were doing and have some fun doing it. So
Yeah, this was right up my alley, man. Like, I was really hoping to go somewhere dark, and it totally went there, so it was super awesome.
yeah. Well, thank you guys so much, and I will see you later.